Jo Leute, was geht ab? Willkommen wieder zurück zu einem Livestream auf meinem Kanal. Und heute sind wir hier für die Part 2. Heute werden wir wieder nur 2 Geschichten anhören. Und die, wo wir werden anhören, ist es Blood Moon, Masquerade and Culture Reality. Ich weiß nicht, wie man das sagt. Die 2 werden wir heute hören und dann 2 morgen wieder. Und ja, starten wir mal mit dem Blood Moon Masquerade.
Ryder and his pups had just returned from the Halloween party after rescuing the mayor and the others from the runaway ship. The moon was at its highest point in the night sky, shining its brilliant light. As Ryder walked through the entrance of the lookout, he yawned as he removed his golden knight helmet. "Well, that was certainly an interesting Halloween," he said. "I'll say," added Rocky. "And what was with that ghost ship flying past the moon?" Rubble shivered at the mention of ghost ship. "Don't talk about that. That was too scary," he said while taking off his costume. "Dude, I don't even know if I'll be able to sleep tonight," said Zuma, getting equally scared. "I had completely forgotten about that until you brought it up, Rocky," said Skye, looking a bit terrified. Don't worry, Skye. Super Chase is here to protect YU," Chase told her, sounding very unsure of himself. Marshall covered his eyes while leaning toward the ground, shivering. "Can Super Chase protect me too?" he said shakily. Ryder smiled sheepishly, watching his pups get worked up over something that he was sure wasn't a big deal. "Guys, calm down. There's a logical explanation to what we saw. There's no need to lose any sleep over it," he tried to reassure. "And what's that?" asked an unconvinced Rubble. Ryder rubbed his chin, thinking quickly of a calming answer. "Well, it could have just been a cloud." "A cloud shaped exactly like a ghost ship?" Rubble argued. "I'm with Ryder," chimed in Rocky. "I'm sure it was just a cloud. With all that went on tonight, it makes sense that our imaginations would run a little wild." "But dude, we all saw it. It's pretty unlikely that all of us would imagine the same thing," Zuma countered. "Not entirely. Sometimes our minds can perceive certain figures and images the same way another's mind would," explained Ryder. Exactly. Thank you, Ryder," Rocky co-signed smugly. "Yeah, I'm still not convinced," said Rubble. "Krakow. Yeah, huh?" Marshall screamed, diving behind Chase and clung to his leg, shivering. "Marshall, it's just lightning," said Ryder. "But the skies were clear not too long ago." "That's too freaky," replied Skye. The 5 pups began to talk amongst each other with frightened faces. Rocky and Ryder turned to face each other before huffing. Ryder then faced the group again. "I'm sure after a good night's rest, we'll all be able to process things more logically," he said. "All Ryder, can I sleep in the lookout tonight, please?" Marshall asked, giving him the puppy dog pout. The other 4 pups joined him as they faced Ryder and whimpered. Rocky rolled his eyes. Ryder stroked his chin. He knew it wouldn't help the situation if he told them that they had to sleep outside. "All right, you can all sleep in here tonight," he replied. The 5 breathed a sigh of relief. "Thanks, Ryder," said Marshall as he licked Ryder's hand. "Well, I guess I'll be the only one sleeping in my pup house tonight," Rocky said smugly while walking off. "If I see the ghost, I'll be sure to yelp for help," he joked while the lookout doors closed behind him. "Well, pups, the rest of you should prepare for bed as well," Ryder said. The 5 pups slowly made their way to the entertainment room of the lookout. Ryder walked to the entrance doors of the lookout and stepped out. He looked to the sky and noticed that many clouds were starting to gather and that the moon had a rather eerie red tint to it. I don't recall the weather forecast mentioning a storm for tonight, he thought to himself before returning into the lookout. Rocky was inside of his closed pup house preparing to lie down. His costume was messily placed on the floor. He turned on a little night light before sitting on the floor and getting lost in his thoughts. As much as he didn't want to admit it, the other pups' counter-arguments on what they all saw had really gotten to him. He wanted to be brave and believe that it was all their imagination, but something kept tugging at the back of his mind telling him otherwise. He felt lonely and secluded, locked inside of his pup house. He wanted to join the others, but after making fun of them while trying to cover his own fear, he simply didn't have the nerve to face them. Ryder's right, he said to himself. Maybe all we need is a good night's rest. He turned off the main light, leaving only the night light on. Within minutes, he drifted off to sleep. Mayor Goodway was finishing off the last of some Halloween candy while sitting in her recliner watching TV with a frightened expression. Oh, this late-night Halloween movie marathon is going to keep me up all night, she stated worriedly before she continued to stuff her mouth. As she crunched on the next pieces of candy, the TV and power within her house shut off. Mayor Goodway jumped with eyes darting back and forth across the room. Chicoletta, are you messing with the fuse box again? The mayor questioned. Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last, uttered a mysterious voice. Who said that? The mayor asked as she became more uneasy. Crash. The sound of breaking glass coming from the kitchen was the only response she received. She was now in a complete panic. Wearing only her nightgown, she made a dash for the front door. Once her hand touched the doorknob, she began to call out to her beloved purse chicken. Chicoletta! Chicoletta! She called. Mommy's leaving. We need to get out of here. To the mayor's displeasure, there was no response from Chicoletta. She pulled out her cell phone and turned on the flashlight feature. Chicoletta? She called once more, her eyes searching the area. She moved the path of the light to the direction of the kitchen. She saw what looked to be loose feathers and gasped. She slowly crept closer to the kitchen, heart beating rapidly. Chicoletta, are you in there, sweetums? The light shining from the cell phone was beginning to shake within her grasp. She stepped 1 foot into the kitchen and began to move the path of the light to the left. When she caught sight of something, she instantly froze and dropped her phone. What she caught sight of was Chicoletta's head covered in blood with glass shards lodged in her neck, eyes, and face. The rest of her body was under the debris of a dish cabinet that had somehow detached from the wall. Ee-hee-ya. The mayor screamed a scream that seemed to echo all throughout Adventure Bay.
Grim today, pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you smile. We'll get by, even if it's just for a little while. If you smile.
PAW Patrol, to the lookout, Ryder said, as the 6 pups' tags began to flash. After a few minutes had passed, all 6 drowsy members were in their designated spots awaiting orders. PAW patrol ready for action, Ryder, sir. Chase announced with a light yawn while wearing his spy gear. Guys? What's with the moon? Zuma said as he stared out of the tower windows at the red glowing sphere. That's a blood moon, shouted Rubble in a panic. A blood moon? Oh no. I'm really scared now. Super Chase didn't sign up for this. What's a blood moon? All the pups turned to face Marshall. What? I think the moon looks good in red. He replied happily. Rubble face-palmed himself. Marshall, blood moons mean that something bad is about to happen. Oh, replied the Dally as his ears drooped. Pups, we need to focus on the mission, Ryder announced, bringing everyone's attention back. Ryder tapped his pup pad and brought up the big screen display. I received an emergency call from Mayor Goodway not too long ago. She seemed really distressed. She wouldn't stop crying and kept repeating Chicoletta over and over. He said while a cartoon image of a crying Mayor Goodway appeared on the big screen. I couldn't make out anything else she was saying, but if I had to guess, I would say that Chicoletta must be in some kind of trouble. He pressed another button on his pup pad and all 6 pup tags appeared on the screen. Since we don't have many details, we'll go ahead and have all paws on deck, just in case. Great. Now some of us won't have to be left here alone. Rubble replied slightly relieved, gaining a nod from a few of the others. All right. PAW patrol is on a roll, Ryder shouted, pumping his fist in the air. However, right after finishing his catchphrase, all power within the lookout was unexpectedly shut off. Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last. The mysterious voice rang around the room of the lookout. Ha! I don't want to die. Rubble screamed as he ran off with tears in his eyes. Rubble, wait. Ryder called out to him. Rubble had enough. He sprinted to the slide and slid out of the lookout. Unbeknownst to him, the rotation mechanism had rotated and moved Skye's pup house to the end of the slide. Skye's pup house transformed into her copter and the propeller blades began to spin at an incredible speed. The others saw this from the tower window and tried desperately to call out to the bulldog. Nearing the end of the slide, Rubble's ears picked up the sound of the propeller. Ah! That's not my rig, he yelled as he frantically tried to move his paws as fast as he could and climb back up the slide, but to his disadvantage, his paws could not grip the slide. With tears in his eyes, he called for help. Ride dash. Buzz. Rubble. The group watched in horror as fur, skin, flesh, and bones were torn apart from the bulldog's body, piece by piece from the bottom up. When nothing was left, the propeller blades slowed down and came to a complete stop. They were coated with blood and fleshy remains. Crimson-covered entrails decorated the copter, slide, grass, and concrete. Rubble's pup tag and collar were laid on the ground shimmering in red with a chunk of the bulldog's neck fur attached to it. Skye bursted into a painful heart-wrenching cry. Marshall sat with his hands on his head, eyes wide, frozen in shock, with tears dripping down his cheeks. Rocky held his mouth to stop himself from spewing vomit while his tears flowed freely. Zuma and Chase were looking away, bawling their eyes out. Ryder himself just stood there motionless as he dropped his pup pad to the floor. I don't understand. How could that have happened? He asked, staring into space. This can't be real. He fell to his knees and covered his face with his hands, letting out sob after sob. Mayor Goodway was still weeping uncontrollably in the dark at the spot where a deceased Chicoletta lay. Ryder, please hurry, she wailed through tears. The lights began to flicker on and off again repeatedly. Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last. spoke the familiar voice. No, she screamed as she ran towards the front door. She tried to turn the knob, but found that it would not budge. She heard heavy footsteps coming from the kitchen, but when she turned her head to face the direction, no one was there. She kept her eyes peeled in the same direction as the footsteps sounded as if they were coming closer and closer. Mayor Goodway backed up against the front door, still waiting to see the source of the footsteps when suddenly, they stopped. The mayor was panting and breathing heavily. She closed her eyes as she tried to relax her breathing and calm herself. She opened her eyes and screamed. Oh! There before her stood a man dressed in pirate attire. He had a black beard that was drenched in blood, a sharp bloody hook that was shaped much like a curved knife, an eye patch over one eye, and the other eye was just a red eyeball, which had neither an iris nor pupil. Before the mayor could finish her scream, the mysterious man cut it short as he jabbed his hook deep into her neck and quickly, but smoothly ripped it open. Crimson waves began to spew from the mayor's neck, staining her purely white nightgown and trickle from her mouth while her head tilted back as if it was a can opened by a can opener. Before her now lifeless body was able to hit the floor, the mysterious murderer vanished.
Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you smile. We'll get by, even if it's just for a little while. If you smile for the people.
Ryder continued to sob in the dark on the lookout floor, blaming himself for what happened to Rubble. I'm so sorry, Rubble. I'm so sorry. The rotation mechanisms never malfunctioned like that before. The entrance to the slide is supposed to scan each of you and identify your personal vehicle. He slammed his fist on the floor. I should have kept constant maintenance on it. This is all my fault. He cried heavily. Chase tried his best to comfort him while he tried to hold himself together. Rocky, with tear-stained eyes, was searching something on Ryder's pup pad, tapping his paw here and there across the screen. The words that had been spoken by the unknown voice still rung around in his head. Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last. He thought to himself, trying to decipher the terrible riddle. His eyes widened as realization settled on him. He began to search, flying ghost ship passing by moon. A picture of the exact same ghost ship passing a moon appeared on the screen in an electronic article. Guys. He called out to the others in a shaky voice. I know this is a bad time, but you need to hear this. I pulled up an article on the ghost ship we saw. It says that not many have seen the paranormal scene, but if you do happen to see it, it's considered to be a bad omen. Those who have seen the ship float past the moon have either been involved in freak accidents that led to their death or have been murdered. The reporter who captured this photo was found the next day hanging from a flagpole by his intestines. Rocky gagged at the thought of that scene, also remembering Rubble for a split second before a tear trickled down his cheek. He wiped his eyes before continuing to read the article. Sniff according to legend, the name of the ship is called the Reaper. The Reaper was a pirate ship that belonged to a pirate who went by the name Bloodbeard. Bloodbeard was a cold-blooded pirate. He murdered the innocent and took from them, no matter the circumstance. One night after pillaging the town, which is now known as Adventure Bay, the king ordered him to be found and executed. Bloodbeard and his crew tried to sail away using the dark night and cloudy skies as cover, but the clouds moved from in front of the moon and the light shining from it illuminated the ocean, giving away the pirates' position. The king's soldiers fired a barrage of cannonballs from the pier and sunk Bloodbeard's ship, leaving no trace of the pirates. Rocky looked back at the picture of the ship in the article. His eyes were concentrating hard as if he had seen the vessel before. He gasped. This ship. If I can remember right, it's the same ship that Zuma was trapped under when we saved the merepups, he stated. Skye walked towards the mixed breed with fear in her eyes. So does that mean everyone who sees the ship pass the moon dies? Rocky set the pup pad down before lowering his head in silence. That's what it sounds like, he answered. The ghost is real. It's real. Tears began to fill his eyes again as he continued. I should have sided with you guys. I shouldn't have teased you for believing. If I would have agreed, maybe Ryder would have taken it more seriously and Rubble wouldn't be dashy trailed off while little droplets splashed on the floor. I want Rubble back. Rocky screamed, throwing his hat across the room. I was just as scared as you guys. The difference is you were all brave enough to admit it, he stated with tears pouring down. I'm the coward. The coward who teased his friends for being scared. His friends. It should have been me who went down the slide, and Dashy was cut off by a paw placed over his mouth. He looked up to see a tearful Skye. Rocky, stop. She pleaded through tears. You're hurting us. Rocky looked up to see everyone next to him with wide tearful eyes before being ambushed by a hug. Rocky, please. Don't ever say that again, please. Zuma pled as he embraced him with worry. Chase stepped forward, placing a boot on his shoulder. None of us blame you or Ryder, Chase said, while Marshall nodded with agreement behind him. An important detail clicked within the Dalmatian's mind. Guys, we all saw it, he stated. That's right. Agreed, Skye. Us, Captain Turbot, Alex, Mr. Porter, Katie, Callie, Mayor Goodway, and Chicoletta. Ryder's eyes shot open. Oh no. Mayor Goodway, he said, remembering the mayor's distressed call. He quickly picked his pup pad up off of the floor and tried to call the mayor. No one answered. We have to go and check on the others. Once we're all together, we can try and find a safe place. I'll go and check on Mayor Goodway and Chicoletta. Chase and Marshall, you two go and check on Alex and Mr. Porter. Skye and Zuma, you check on Captain Turbot. Rocky and Ryder paused for a moment before finishing his sentence. He wasn't used to being one pup short, but this was no time to be consumed by grief. It's all right, Ryder. I can go check on Katie and Callie alone. Rocky answered, staring at the floor sadly. Are you sure? Ryder asked, regaining his composure. Yeah. It's time for me to be brave. Rocky answered. Okay. PAW Patrol is on a roll. Ryder announced with not even the tiniest bit of enthusiasm and happiness that he normally shows when saying the phrase. Spy Chase headed for the slide. Wait! Shouted Ryder. Don't take the slide. I don't want to take any chances. He pulled out his pup pad and began tapping across the screen. But sir, how will we get down? Chase asked, curious. The slide and elevator are the only ways down and the power is out. This'll just take a sec. Ryder replied, still tapping his screen. Okay. Auxiliary power on, he shouted after tapping one last button. The power all around the lookout flashed back on, and the sound of some machines whirring and computers booting up could be heard. Ryder ran to the elevator with the 5 following him, and they descended to the ground floor. As the elevator door opened, Ryder wore a serious expression. Pups, please be careful, said Ryder. The 5 slowly nodded. There's no way I can get my ATV, so I guess I'll have to. Ryder paused before finishing. Take Rubble's rig. Ryder shook his head. Okay, pups, let's head outside, he commanded. The 5 pups exited through the automatic doors as they opened and closed. Once outside, they waited for Ryder to join them. Ryder walked towards the exit doors. The doors would not budge. Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last. Ryder's heart stopped upon hearing the familiar voice, and once again, the power within the lookout had shut off.
Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you smile. We'll get by, even if it's just for a little while. If you smile for the Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and
The 5 pups stared worriedly at the entrance of the lookout, wondering why Ryder had not yet emerged and why the power had once again shut off. Curious Chase made his way over to the double doors. Ryder, sir? Are you coming? Ryder quickly tried to force the doors open with his hands. He struggled and grunted, using every ounce of his strength, but the doors still did not part. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his pup pad to try and reactivate the auxiliary power once again. But once he tapped his screen, he found that the device would not power on. No. He thought to himself as he continued tapping the black screen. He pushed himself up against the entrance doors. Pups? The power is out again. I think it's the ghost pirate. I heard the voice. He gulped. I can't reactivate the power. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I need the 5 of you to continue this mission without me. The 5 pups gasped, all running to the entrance doors, leaning and banging on them. No, Ryder. We're not leaving without you, said Chase. We can't lose another member, cried Marshall. This is an order, Ryder yelled, in a very harsh manner. He never once had to use a tone of this nature or raise his voice with them, and they were all very shocked. Chase wanted to argue back, to tell him that he could not obey this order, but he knew that Ryder had made up his mind for them to go and was not going to back down. With sorrow-filled eyes, he turned to face the others. We need to go, he said, gaining a surprised look from the others. What? We can't just leave Ryder, Skye argued. These are our orders. We have to obey. It's what Ryder wants. Another second we're here is another second the others could be in danger. The others stared at the ground. They knew Chase was right. Marshall, if it's all right with you, I'd like to pair up with Skye and go check on the porters. I have something important I need to talk to her about. Do you mind pairing up with Zuma? The Dalmatian lowered his ears. Sure, that's fine, he replied, lowering his head sadly. Chase noticed Marshall's expression and wanted to question it, but instead decided to brush it off. He proceeded to walk to his vehicle with the others following behind, heading to their designated areas as well. As the group walked around to their pup houses, they couldn't help but notice the slide decorated with blood, sliced bones, and entrails that came from their close friend. They tried their best to keep it together as memories of his horrible death came flooding back. With these terrible memories, their worry for Ryder only increased. Zuma, Chase, Rocky, and Marshall each approached their pup house and pressed a switch that caused them to transform into their vehicles. Skye hopped into the back of Chase's police cruiser. She didn't want to take her helicopter for obvious reasons. The four lined their vehicles up in a horizontal row. Once either of you find any of the others, safe or otherwise, just contact the rest of us, said Chase. The other three simply nodded. With that said, the five turned to look at the lookout once more.
Please be safe, Ryder.
Ryder turned around and stared into the dark as he heard metallic footsteps inching closer. He focused his eyes and saw blue lights in the distance. Robodog, he shouted in excitement as he noticed the robotic dog walking closer to him. Boy, am I glad to see his excitement changed to worry as he realized something. Wait. I don't remember activating you, he said with wide eyes. As Robodog inched closer, Ryder's pup pad began to ring. It's working now? Ryder said to himself, completely confused. He fumbled around in his pockets before pulling the device out. As he gazed at the screen, his expression became even more confused to see a cartoon bloody skull icon as the pup pad continued to ring. He hesitated a moment before answering. Once he answered, video feed of Bloodbeard appeared on the screen. The pirate just stood there in one spot, breathing heavily for what seemed like minutes before the pup pad shut off again. Ryder had never been more freaked out than now. His state of shock caused him to drop the pup pad to the ground, shattering the screen in the process. Robodog lunged at Ryder, biting his ankle, ripping through his pants leg and drawing blood. Ryder grunted in pain. He kicked his leg and sent Robodog sailing across the floor. The cybernetic dog hopped back on its feet, yipping and wagging its tail before charging at the boy again. Robodog, stop! Ryder commanded while clenching his hurt ankle. The command did not register. Ryder quickly dodged and rolled as Robodog tried to attack him once again, just barely missing his arm. Ryder knew that he couldn't disable the cybernetic dog without his remote, and even if he had the remote, it wouldn't do much good. He stared at his hand, which was printed with blood from his ankle. Robodog attacked once more, this time making contact with Ryder's leg and taking a huge chunk of flesh. Urgh! Ryder uttered through gritted teeth. The immense pain caused beads of tears to form in his eyes. He was immediately starting to regret his decision of telling the pups to leave. He needed help and the situation was only starting to look more bleak. Robodog launched himself towards Ryder's face, with blood trickling down his metallic mouth. Ryder caught him with both hands just before Robodog could snap at his face, but the impact caused him to fall onto his back. The metallic monster continued its assault, trying to bite and nip any part of the 10-year-old as Ryder struggled to continue holding him while lying on the floor. Is this it? He thought. I never would have imagined that it would end like this. I'm sorry, Chase. Rocky. Zuma. Skye. Marshall. And especially you. Rubble. At that moment, something clicked within Ryder. No. Using all of his strength, Ryder threw Robodog with a great amount of force, causing him to collide with a wall a few feet away. Of course, it didn't take the electronic menace long to recover. Ryder, clutching his bleeding leg, quickly limped back over to the entrance doors and picked up his pup pad. Robodog was already heading straight for him. Ryder held the pup pad with both hands, positioning himself in a batter-ready stance. I'm sorry to do this to you, he said. But I won't let you tear me away from them. Robodog jumped up towards Ryder's face again. Ryder swung the pup pad with all his might. KRSSSHT. The pup pad made direct contact with Robodog's head. The metallic menace, along with a group of glass shards, went spiraling in the air across the room and smashed into a wall. Robodog fell to the floor from the wall. His eye visor blinked a few times before shutting off. Ryder dropped his pup pad to the floor and breathed heavily. He had survived the assault of one of his greatest and most loved creations, but the cost of living came from destroying it. I suppose, I can always build a second version, he said, while staring at the floor. He closed his eyes and sighed in relief. Now I just need to find a way out of here. At that moment, Robodog's visor blinked back on, and not a second later his jetpack activated. He shot through the air towards Ryder with great speed. Ryder gasped and looked up with wide eyes. Robodog bit Ryder's neck while passing and ripped his head clear off his shoulders with a powerful force. The metallic monster then smashed into the entrance doors with an impact so great that its metallic body completely shattered, causing it to drop Ryder's severed head to the floor. Ryder's headless body spewed blood from the top like a volcano as it fell to the floor, already forming a giant puddle. His head was placed a few feet away, bearing the same wide-eyed expression he had just before the murderous monster decapitated him. Katie's eyes shot open wide as she sat up dressed in pajamas in her bed, breathing heavily. She reached over and turned on her lamp. "What a nightmare," she said aloud. "I hope you're having better dreams than me," she said as she turned to look at Callie. Callie wasn't there. "Callie?" Katie called as she began to look in all directions of the room. The lamp then shut off. "Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass shall soon find that night to be their last," uttered a voice that was very unfamiliar to Katie. Katie jumped as she pulled up her covers. "Who's there?" she asked, a little too panicked. "I must still be dreaming," she thought to herself. "Kawai," called a voice. "Kawai." Katie got out of her bed with a confused expression and walked to the doorway as she recognized the voice that was calling her. "Rubble," she said, staring out into the darkness. "Katie, see mirror. Me and Callie have a surprise for you."
Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there would be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you smile. We'll get by, even if it's just for a little while. If you smile for the Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there would be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something.
As the blood moon hovered in the night sky, Chase, ears flowing in the wind, drove as fast as he could to reach his destination. Skye was quiet in the back, a lot of things going through her mind. This night. It's a complete nightmare, she said aloud. I keep hoping that I'll wake up and all of us will be back at the lookout. That Rubble will still be with us. Although Chase had said that he wanted to talk to her about something, he couldn't bring himself to. Too many thoughts were running through his mind as well. Would Ryder be okay? Would the others be safe? Would he be able to save anyone at all? And most importantly, would he be able to protect Skye? He was working up the courage to say something until Skye continued. And I can't help but wonder, which one of us will be next? She said. Her last statement really hit Chase hard. He didn't know how to respond to that. How could he truly assure her that everything would be all right? Skye, the thought of losing you. He swallowed. Scares me. That's not to say that I don't care about the others, but I really care about you. Chase said. Ah, Chase, that's so sweet. I care about you too, replied Skye, completely oblivious to what he truly meant. Chase huffed, continuing to focus on the road. Skye, what I wanted to talk to you about. I really care about you. Chase emphasized. Chase, you said that I'll read dash. I care about you more than myself, he unintentionally interrupted. Skye was now finally starting to get the picture of what he was saying. Chase's face was flushed red as he took a deep breath and continued. I think of you every day. I worry myself to death whenever you're in trouble. I kept your old bathing cap just because it smells like you. Wait. Ignore that last part. The best part of my days are the times we get to hang out. I love when we play pup boogie together. I love when we go on missions and me and you pair up. I love your smile and laugh and the way you do flips. I love everything about you, Skye. Chase finished, out of breath as Mr. Porter's house began to come into view. Skye sat there a little dumbfounded. Because I love you, Chase said as he gained his breath back. Chase's last statement caused Skye's eyes to shoot open as memories came flooding back to her. Skye, I'm glad you're okay. Skye, you're safe. And not that I was worried or anything. Ryder, she made it. Skye made it. Be careful, Skye. Chase was worried about you, Skye. These memories caused realization to set on Skye. Chase. She thought, at a loss for words. In her mind, she had never really considered anyone on her team to be more than just a friend, but for some reason, Chase confessing these feelings for her made her feel something towards him. Chase nervously waited for her to say something. Anything. Instead, he was greeted by a tight hug from behind him. Skye embraced him tightly, small drops of tears hanging onto her eyes. Chase's cheeks bursted with red color again, but he quickly relaxed himself. Skye ended the embrace as the two pulled into Mr. Porter's yard and stared at the house before them. For some strange reason, many crows were perched atop the house. The birds seemed to watch the two as they slowly stepped out of the cruiser. As the two pups looked from the outside, they couldn't help but notice that no lights were on in the inside. I don't think this is a good sign, uttered a shivering Skye. Rough. Heat vision goggles. Chase commanded as the green visor on his spy helmet dropped down over his eyes. He scanned the house for any heat signatures that he could find. There, he said as he came across two within the house. Skye, you should stay out here, he told her with a worried look on his face. You'll be safer outside. Skye was about to argue, but decided against it. Even though he didn't want her to go in the house with him, she didn't want him to go in alone. But Chase, what about you, she said. Don't worry about me, he said with a serious expression. I'll protect you. I promise. He turned to walk off, but was stopped by Skye. He turned to face her only to be met by a kiss. As Skye pulled away, Chase had a dazed expression with cheeks so red that one would think the pup had a high fever. Skye wanted to giggle at this, but didn't because of the seriousness of the situation. Be careful, Chase, she said to him, snapping him out of his heavenly moment. I promise. He turned to walk off, but was stopped by Skye. He turned to face her only to be met by a kiss. As Skye pulled away, Chase had a dazed expression with cheeks so red that one would think the pup had a high fever. Chase furiously shook his head, coming back to reality. He looked up to Skye and smiled sweetly and nodded. I will. He walked up to the house door and stood on his hind legs as he turned the knob. It's unlocked? As he opened the door, all that lied ahead of him was darkness.
Ruf. Night Vision goggles.
Katie slowly walked down the dark hallway. She couldn't figure out what in the world Rubble would be doing in her house this late at night and why he and Callie wanted to surprise her. None of this made sense to her at all. I must still be dreaming, she thought to herself as she felt her way through the pitch-black hallway. Rubble, can you or Callie at least turn on the light? No answer was heard. Rubble, she called out to the voice again. Still no answer was heard. Katie huffed and continued to feel her way through the dark until the walls expanded and she was unknowingly in the center of a spacious room. She continued to walk until she bumped her head into something hanging from the ceiling and slipped and fell to the floor. What in the world? She asked, while rubbing her behind. What did I slip in? It's so wet. She felt all over her now drenched pajamas. She began to smell something strange. Rubble, are you still there? Can you turn on the lights? Katie asked. In response, a few seconds later, a dim light had flicked on. Katie's eyes grew wide as she stared at her PJs, covered in a dark red substance. Is this? She looked to the floor and saw that what she had slipped in was a puddle of the red substance. Her breathing started to become shallow seconds before a drop of the red substance fell from above her. She slowly looked up. Awoof. Hovering above her was Callie, hanging from the chandelier by a worn-out leash tied around her neck. Her eyes were wide open and she was missing the lower half of her body. No. 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 Callie, she wept. She didn't know how or why this happened, but she just wept. Kai. You're next, said the voice as its pitch deepened with the last word. Katie didn't know what else to do except run. She made a dash for the front door and tried to exit. The knob would not budge. Help! Somebody! She desperately began to pound on the door with her hands and fists. From a shadowy corner, the silhouette of a bulldog began to walk forward and changed shape into a pirate wielding a sharp hook. Katie screamed and banged louder as he began to close in on her. He raised his bloody hook. KRSSSHT. A green recycling truck crashed through the wall and windows, screeching on brakes as it pulled up by Katie. Rocky looked up from his now scuffed and heavily dented truck to see the pirate picking himself off of the floor a few feet away. He studied the features of the scurvy man and especially noted the red pupilless eye and bloody hook and beard. Rocky's eyes widened in shock. Is that Bloodbeard? He asked as courage began to fade away. He looked towards the ceiling to see the horrible sight of Callie dangling. No, he uttered out. Callie. I was too late to save them both. He thought to himself, trying to blink back the tears that were forming. Snapping out of his trance, he turned towards Katie. Katie, hop on. The blonde didn't waste a second as she stepped onto the arms of the recycling truck and climbed up to Rocky's seat, crouching behind it. Rocky hit the gas and swung the truck around in a U-turn, heading out of the same entrance that he had made. Katie looked behind her to see if they were being followed by the ghost pirate. Fortunately, there wasn't a trace of him behind them. As Katie stared at her house shrinking in the distance, she faced forward, covering her eyes in tears. Rocky, Callie, she was dash. Katie cut herself off as she cried. Why? 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 Rocky couldn't bear to see her cry. He knew the feeling of losing someone all too well. He knew there was nothing he could say to make her feel better. He tapped his pup tag. Guys. I have Katie with me. I was able to save her. Rocky said, speaking through his tag in a shaky voice. Chase exhaled in relief as he stopped walking through the dark house for a moment. That's great news. How are Katie and Callie? He asked. Rocky hesitated as he lowered his head in shame. I only have Katie with me, he answered. So, where's Callie? Skye asked, curious. There was a moment of silence before the other 4 pups could hear Katie's now loud cries. They were able to place the pieces together. Has any pup else found one of the others? Asked Zuma. Me and Marshall still haven't reached Captain Turbot's yet. Me and Skye are at the porters now. I'm searching for 2 heat signatures as we speak, answered Chase. And, no one's heard word from Ryder yet? Asked Marshall. The others were all silent for a second. No, responded Chase. I'm going to head back to the lookout to check on Hyde. No. Rocky was cut off by Chase. You need to get Katie out of town. You don't know what you'll find there, said the shepherd. Chase. Rocky looked horrified. I'm sorry, Rocky, but it's just as I said earlier. We have to complete the mission. A tear could be spotted rolling down from his night vision goggles. The longer Katie is in town, the longer she could be in danger. I understand, replied Rocky. I'll take Katie to Foggy Waahhh. Rocky jerked his steering wheel as he swerved out the way of the pirate who had appeared right in front of him. Katie screamed. Rocky! What's going on? Chase called over the speaker. The ghost pirate found us, he replied back. Seconds passed and there was no response back to Rocky from the other end. Chase. Still no response was heard. Skye. Zuma? Marshall? He looked down at his pup tag for a second to see that it was no longer lit. He furiously tapped it to try and get it to activate, but it was no use. Why? Why is this happening? He yelled as he slammed his paw on the dashboard of his truck. Rocky! Rocky, answer me! Chase yelled through his pup tag. The only response he received was a few seconds of eerie heavy breathing before it stopped. Rocky? Come on, dude, answer us. Are you all right? The other 3 called out to the mixed breed as well. Their worry only ensued as the silence continued. Rocky laid on the gas, not letting up as he kept watch behind him. His heart felt like it was about to jump out of his chest. He looked back and forth, searching for where the ghost pirate might jump out next, with Katie searching as well despite her being short on breath from screaming. The ruby-red moon that seemed to follow them looked as if it was taunting them. He rushed past City Hall, still keeping eyes peeled behind him. As he looked back to the front, Bloodbeard stood in his path once more. Yeah, he screamed, once again swerving around the ghost pirate. This time, however, the speed and force of the swerve caused the recycling truck to flip over. Katie screamed as the motions threw her off the truck before the side of it slammed onto the road, creating a loud screeching noise. Rocky's truck, still skidding on its side, crashed into a streetlight pole. The impact knocked him unconscious.
Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you smile. We'll get by, even if it's just for a little while. If you smile for the
Marshall was flying down the road in his EMT truck. His eyes may have been fixed on the road, but his mind was in an entirely different location. He was supposed to be with Chase right now. Not that he had a problem with Zuma or anything. It's just that if he had to die, he would rather it be by Chase's side. Instead, Skye would be the one by Chase's side and under his protection. Marshall knew exactly what Chase wanted to talk to her about, and he couldn't help feeling a little hurt at the fact that Chase switched him out. Ryder told Chase to pair up with him. Chase had never undermined Ryder's orders before, but now here he was, undermining orders just to be with Skye. Thinking of this caused Marshall to let out a huge sigh. Marshall. You okay, dude? Marshall was knocked out of his thoughts by the chocolate lab driving up beside him. Yeah. Marshall replied. I was just kinda lost in thought there. I hear ya. I can't stop thinking about Waki. Zuma said, the worry clear in his eyes. I'm worried about everyone, said Marshall. We don't know what happened to Rocky, we don't know what happened to Ryder, we don't even know what's gonna happen to us. Losing Rubble was hard enough, and I just don't know how much more of this I can take. Zuma just stared sadly at the Dalmatian. Marshall wasn't the only one feeling this way. They all felt the same. The walls were closing in, sealing off all hope that might have been shining through the crevices. This nightmare night was taking its toll. I know what you mean. We didn't do anything wrong. We don't deserve this, any of this. Zuma answered. The drive to Captain Turbott's seemed to go on forever. The two couldn't help but wonder how the others were doing. Skye sat outside of the porter's house, watching the crows. The blackbirds seemed to stare at the kakapo in an eerie fashion. Skye started to feel slightly uneasy as more crows began to gather and land atop the porter's house. Even though these birds weren't eagles, she still got that certain shiver from them. On top of being creepy, they were still bigger than her. She moved a shaky paw to tap her pup tag. Chase, have you found them yet? She asked. No. Not yet, replied the shepherd, searching the house. He looked from side to side. My goggles picked up 2 heat signatures, but now that I'm in the house, I can't seem to see them anymore. He sighed. Not only that, but I can't seem to focus. I keep thinking about what might have happened to Rocky. I just wish there was a way to see where he is. An idea suddenly came to Chase's mind. That's it. Skye. Use my drone. Launch it and tell it to find Rocky. Chase told her through his pup tag. You should be able to see everything the drone sees on the monitor. Skye nodded, and she quickly ran back to Chase's spy cruiser. She looked confused at all the various buttons on the control panel. Okay. Now how do you work this thing? She said to herself. She's seen Chase work it a few times, but not enough times to have it completely memorized. She tapped a few random buttons and the holder for the drone extended from the top of the vehicle. Nailed it, she said triumphantly. Arf. Deploy drone. Launch, she commanded. The drone shot out from the holder and began to soar in the air, flying in circles. Skye, watching this, tilted her head a little confused. Why isn't it going anywhere? She stared at it for a few more seconds before she mentally smacked herself. Oh. That's right, she muttered out. She remembered that she has to give the drone a command after it's launched. Find Rocky, she yelled into the air. The drone registered the command and quickly took off into the distance. Skye turned her attention back to the monitor on the back of Chase's vehicle. She watched the view through the surveillance of the drone, looking for any sign or sight of her friend. Back inside the porter's house, Chase was sniffing around the hallways until he picked up a familiar scent. This is Alex's scent, he said to himself. He followed the scent through the hallway until he came to a hatch embedded into the floor. Chase opened the hatch to find stairs that led to some kind of dark basement. He winced as the smell of burning flesh filled his nose. This doesn't seem like a good sign, he said, walking down the stairs. Their scent is strong down here. Were they trying to hide? Chase stepped onto the basement floor and saw a furnace against the wall. He continued to sniff the floor looking for clues, but the floor was so dusty that he immediately started sneezing. His nose led him to the furnace, where the smell of burning flesh, along with the scent of the porters, was the strongest. Chase got a bad feeling in his stomach as he walked closer to the furnace. He sniffed near the flames and his eyes became wide. He looked around the basement for anything that he could fill with water. He grabbed a nearby pail atop a dusty table and ran to the nearest source of water to fill it up. After doing so, he ran back into the basement and up to the furnace. He doused the water into the furnace and the large flames sizzled out, making smoke cover the room. Chase covered his muzzle with his arm and let out a few coughs. When the smoke began to clear, he walked back up to the furnace and peered inside. It was just as he feared. The furnace was littered with extremely burned and severed limbs that carried the scent of both Alex and Mr. Porter. Chase removed his spy helmet and bowed his head, giving the two a moment of silence. In Chase's mind, Alex was always somewhat annoying, but he didn't hate him, and he certainly wouldn't wish this on him. Alex looked up to them after all. Mr. Porter was very loved by all the pups. He never failed to give them treats, fruits, or desserts every now and then, and was such a kind and gentle man. How am I going to tell Skye that we were too late? How am I going to tell the others that we failed? Skye continued to watch the drone monitor. She could still feel the beady eyes of the crows watching her. The monitor started to get fuzzier and fuzzier. That's not supposed to happen, she said to herself. It wasn't long before the drone's view completely faded from the monitor. Suddenly, Skye's ears picked up the sound of flapping close by. When she turned her head to look, she saw the crows that were previously watching her take flight into the air, circling just above her. She began to feel even more uneasy as countless more groups of crows joined in. The pitch-black birds swarmed above her like a tornado, preparing to touch down. There were so many of them. The sound of heavy breathing reached her ears, and she turned around to look behind her. She looked at the monitor in shock as it blinked back and forth from static to an image of Bloodbeard. Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last. Skye immediately took off running after hearing the voice. The large flock of crows proceeded to pursue her. Chase. They're after me. I need help. Skye yelled through her pup tag. What's happening? Who's after you? Chase asked, the worry clear in his voice. It's the crows. They're chasing me. I heard the voice and saw the ghost. Before she could even finish the sentence, Chase dropped his helmet and was already dashing back up the basement stairs and through the dark hallways on his way to the exit. No, please. Not her. He thought to himself. Faster. I need to go faster. He thrusted his legs out, picking up speed. Skye was running as fast as her little legs would take her. She tried her hardest to not look back, but when she did, 4 crows swooped down from the flock above her and latched onto her ears with their beaks. They yanked her high into the sky while she screamed. Eek! They took her higher and higher. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free from their strong beaks. She watched as the ground had continued to shrink. Where are you taking me? She asked them. The answer that she demanded was not given. As the crows soared high above the clouds, they released the cockapoo and she began plummeting to the ground at a fast rate. She continued to scream. Chase, who had just made it out of the front door, watched in horror as she fell from the sky a distance away from him. He sprinted in her direction as quickly as he could. Please make it. Please make it. He repeated. Skye could only watch as the ground grew closer. Arf. Net. Chase shot out his net towards Skye. Horror had filled him as Skye hit the ground before the net could catch her. No. Chase cried out, stopping in his tracks. Skye grunted as pain coursed through her entire body. She felt as though she had broken a few bones. The crows then swooped down in a tornado and surrounded Skye, assaulting her. They continuously pecked at her, accidentally pecking her pup tag, activating it. All the others could now hear her screams through their pup tags. A crow plucked out her eye, while another nipped off her nose. Numerous flocks of crows pecked and pulled off every part of the pained cockapoo. Chase rushed over towards her, tears filling his eyes. No. Not her. Not he-er. He kept yelling. He rushed into the swarm, biting, kicking, and smacking any bird in sight while he tried to reach the cockapoo. The bird's attacks on the female didn't waver, nor did they turn their attention to Chase or attack him. Chase wasn't giving up. He continued to inch his way through the swarm. He could no longer see Skye. The only thing in sight was a bundle of crows, flapping and pecking their prey. The flock slowly calmed and they began to cease their attacks on the female. Chase ran to the remaining flock that covered where Skye was and released his fury on them, biting, stomping, and pummeling them fiercely. The other crows saw this and scattered away into the sky in panic. Chase looked in front of him and stood shivering. Skye? Was that you screaming? Is everything all right? Marshall's voice rang from her pup tag. Skye? Skye, are you there? The Dally received no answer. Chase? Are you Thura? Zuma asked the shepherd, as Chase's tag lit up. Chase? Did something happen? Dude, come on, answer me. He pleaded. Yet he still received silence. Chase just stared as if he was put in a trance. He stared at Skye's bloodied collar. He stared at her flashing pup tag. He stared at her scattered fur and ripped aviator cap. He stared at her no longer visible body. All that remained were her goggles and tiny pieces of flesh. He didn't cry. He didn't whimper. He didn't cringe. He just stared, broken and numb to the world around him. Marshall had a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. Why wouldn't he respond? He pondered to himself. Skye screamed like she was in trouble, and what was with all the bird noises? What happened? All these questions and more ran through his mind as he and Zuma closed in on the dock. They looked around to see that Captain Turbott's boat was nowhere in sight. Zuma focused his eyes over the waves in the distance. He was able to spot a ship far out in the sea near a little island with a lighthouse. There. He's on Seal Island, said Zuma. Hop on my hovercraft. We'll have to cross the ocean. Marshall gulped. For some reason, crossing the ocean on a night like this just didn't sit right with him. He jumped out of his EMT truck and slowly walked over to the hovercraft. He hesitated for a moment. What's wrong? Zuma asked him. Nothing, Marshall said, shaking his head. He decided to push the thoughts away. I can't waste any more time. Marshall reached out his paw to Zuma, and the lab helped him into the back seat of the hovercraft. Once Marshall was seated and buckled in, Zuma took off, picking up speed across the sand and zoomed off into the ocean. The two watched the waters and how the blood moon reflected on the surface of it. Even on a night like this, all seemed calm with the ocean. Despite the situation, seeing this calmness within the ocean relaxed Zuma a little. He loved the ocean, and the serenity and peace within it always calmed him down. As Marshall stared at the reflection of the blood moon, he noticed something disappear around the borders of the moon. He looked to the sky and noticed something that he hadn't before. There were red stars surrounding the moon, 4 in total. The red stars were tiny, but still noticeable. Zuma, do you see that? Marshall asked Zuma, causing him to look up. Yeah. That's the blood moon, remember? It's been there all night. No, not that. I'm talking about those tiny stars going around it. Marshall said, pointing. Zuma squinted his eyes looking closer, and he did indeed see the stars. I see 'em. They're red. Just like the moon, replied Zuma. Not only that, those 4 stars are the only red ones in the entire sky. Marshall added. What do you think it means? Zuma asked. I don't know, answered Marshall. The hovercraft began to close in on the island. After riding on shore, Marshall and Zuma hurriedly jumped out of the hovercraft. They stared at a ship floating near the shore a distance away from them. It was the same ship that they were supposed to have the Halloween party on. Marshall, taking the quiet scene in, felt an unusual chill. Something just seems eerie here, he said. What do you mean? Zuma asked, turning to look at him. It's just so quiet. Too quiet. It makes me feel uneasy, Marshall answered. Zuma proceeded to walk over to the boat and Marshall followed behind. They walked up the wooden ramp of the ship and onto the deck. Decorations from the party they were supposed to have still hung around the ship. The two approached the back end of the deck and knocked on the entrance door to the inner parts of the ship. No one answered. Zuma decided to pull on the door to see if it was unlocked, and surely it was. He opened the door and they walked in. The inside of the ship was actually bigger than it looked from the outside. There was even a wooden staircase that led down deeper into the ship. Tiny lanterns were hung on the walls. Captain Turbot? Zuma called as they carefully inched down the creaking stairs. See Captain Turbot? Marshall called as well. As they walked deeper down the stairs, they noticed that the lower part of the staircase had no lanterns on the walls. Near the bottom of the stairs there was a dim light coming from around the corner. The two could hear noises, as if someone was chopping something up. Marshall and Zuma gulped. See Captain Turbot? Zuma called as they walked down the last of the stairs. In here, guys, called the captain from around the corner. The pups were relieved and surprised to hear his voice. Once they had gotten to the bottom of the staircase, around the corner was a small kitchen area. Wow, Captain Turbot, I didn't know your ship had a secret kitchen, Zuma said, looking impressed. Captain Turbot had his back turned to them while he stood chopping something on the counter. He chuckled. Well, there's a lot of things that you don't know, he answered, his back still turned to them. Captain Turbot, we really need you to come with us, Marshall said, interrupting the small talk. This is going to sound crazy, but there's this ghost pirate that's going around killing everyone. Captain Turbot chuckled once more while still chopping. Oh, I wouldn't find that hard to believe, he replied. The two pups found his behavior to be very strange. He continued to chop the unknown object. This made Marshall curious, and as a result, he began to slowly walk forward to get a better view of what the captain was doing. As he walked past the side counter, something caught his eye. He quickly looked over and gasped. Captain Turbot's orange knitted cap laid on the floor in a crimson trail. Marshall, eyes wide, began to shiver. "Zizi Zuma," Marshall whispered out. Zuma walked over to where the Dalmatian stood. "What's wrong?" he asked. The lab soon got his answer as Marshall pointed in the direction of the cap. Zuma's heart stopped. "See, Captain Turbot, why is there blood on your cap?" the lab asked, spooked. The captain didn't reply. He just continued to chop while humming in an eerie fashion. Marshall and Zuma slowly walked to the cap and peeked behind the counter. Behind that very counter laid Captain Turbot. The two pups' stomachs grew weak as they struggled to hold their vomit in their mouth. Looking at Captain Turbot, he had been completely dissected. His innards were splattered out with a few organs still being connected to his body. As they gazed at the gruesome and horrific sight, they could still hear the other Captain Turbot humming and chopping on the cutting board, until his head turned around 180 degrees to reveal a red pupilless eyeball and an expressionless face. Marshall and Zuma screamed, holding onto one another while he continued to hum and chop down on the now visible object. It appeared to be a heart. A human heart. The two pups wasted no time in bailing. They quickly ran out of the kitchen and fumbled up the staircase. The ghost didn't seem to be chasing them, but that fact didn't slow them down. They exited the ship, dashing down the ramp, but Marshall tripped and tumbled down the wooden ramp and into the sand. "Marshall!" Zuma called. Making his way down, he helped him up after reaching the bottom, and the two made way for the hovercraft. They were in such a panic that when they hopped in, they didn't bother buckling up. Zuma started the hovercraft and took off in the ocean, heading back towards the town. The ghost pirate appeared on the shore that they had just left. "Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last," he said before vanishing. Zuma's hovercraft hummed as it raced across the water. Marshall, he was gutted like a fish. Zuma couldn't believe what happened to Captain Turbot. He and the captain had a lot in common when it came to the sea. They both shared a deep interest and love in it. Now the only person he could relate to about such things was gone. The chocolate lab felt tears slipping down his cheeks. Marshall, noticing this, gave him a gentle hug from behind. He couldn't find the words to say. Marshall let go of him as both of their ears picked up a splashing sound behind them. Marshall gasped and quickly turned around. His body froze upon what he saw. A giant black fin heading towards them at great speed. "Zuma! Zuma!" Marshall called, shaking him. As Zuma turned around, the fin sunk back into the ocean before he could see it. What? Was it the ghost pirate? Is he still following us? He asked Marshall, panicked. It was a giant shark. It was following us. Marshall answered, looking equally terrified. A shark? We've never seen a shark in this ocean before, said Zuma. I didn't actually see it. Just the fin, but I'm sure that's what it was, answered Marshall. Zuma looked side to side of the hovercraft, but saw nothing. Keep an eye out for it and hang on. Zuma pressed down on the gas and sped the hovercraft up. Marshall, although scared, did as he was told. When he looked upon the waters, all he could see was the red tint and reflection from the blood moon. He wouldn't give up. He narrowed his eyes and concentrated hard from a distance, watching behind them. The shark suddenly sprung out from the front of the hovercraft. Whoa! Zuma was able to duck just in time as a great white shark jumped up before snapping at him and completely diving over the two. Marshall wasn't exaggerating when he called the shark giant. In fact, calling it giant was a complete understatement, though the two have never really seen a shark up close and personal like this. The great white dove back into the ocean, creating a massive shockwave on the surface of the waters, creating waves that shook the hovercraft violently. That thing was huge, Zuma said, trying to gain back control of the craft. Marshall didn't say a thing. He just laid low, covering his head while his teeth chattered. Marshall, can you see it? He called out. Marshall shut his eyes tight and continued shivering. Marshall. No. I'm too scared. I don't want to get eaten, Marshall whispered. Zuma scoffed at the situation that they were put in. This didn't look good at all. Marshall, please. I need to focus on getting us back to the shore safe. I need you to keep looking out for it. Zuma's sentence was cut short as the ginormous great white tore through a part of the hovercraft with its powerful jaws. The craft, now damaged and unbalanced, began to capsize over into the ocean, taking both pups down with it. Marshall struggled to breathe as he was already quickly running out of air as he sunk deeper into the crimson-like ocean. Zuma watched as the Dalmatian began to slip out of consciousness. Thinking quickly, he wasted no time activating his pup pack and oxygen mask and made straight for Marshall. He grabbed Marshall around the waist, removed his own oxygen breather, and gave it to his drowning friend. Zuma adjusted the breather on Marshall's mouth before activating the jet propeller mode on his pup pack and heading towards the surface. "Stay with me, dude. We can't lose you." Zuma looked around for any sign of the Titanic beast, but he couldn't find even a trace of it. Where'd that thing go? Something that big shouldn't be able to hide. Unless... Zuma looked below him, and surely enough a wide mouth with sharp teeth was speeding toward him from the deep. He was able to dodge the massive jaws just in time and swam to the surface. Still toting Marshall, he quickly made his way for the beach shores. Just a little closer. Why can't this thing go any faster? The tall fin was speeding toward Zuma, and the safety of the shore seemed miles away. Zuma's legs were starting to get tired, as he had been kicking them to swim faster in tandem with his pup pack. He continued to hold on to Marshall tightly. His breathing was becoming heavy, but he focused his eyes on the approaching shore. "I won't give up. Not with Marshall on the line." Zuma bared his teeth and kicked his legs as fast as he could, greatly increasing his speed. Soon he was able to create a wide distance between himself and the Titanic fin. The great white tried to shorten the distance by lunging at the lab, but missed. The force of the shark crashing into the water next to Zuma caused a wave to form and pushed Zuma and Marshall the rest of the distance to the shore. Marshall slipped out of Zuma's hold and both of them landed in the shallow water. Marshall coughed up water and slowly opened his eyes. "Huh? Where are we? Where's the shark?" he asked, looking around. "We're back on shore," Zuma answered. He was lying in the shallow water, completely exhausted. "But the last thing I remember is falling into the ocean." Marshall turned his attention towards Zuma. "Did you save me?" he asked. Zuma chuckled. "Barely. You really need to lay off the pup treats," he said, smiling at Marshall. "Thanks, Zuma. I thought I was a goner," he said, looking down. "Hey, we're a team, and you're my friend. I couldn't just leave you dash." The great white sprang from the ocean and onto the shallow water, catching the lower part of Zuma's body in its teeth. Zuma yelled out in pain. Marshall looked shocked. The shark proceeded to try and wiggle its way back into the ocean with Zuma in tow. "Marshall!" Zuma called out to the Dalmatian, reaching out for him. Marshall snapped out of it and ran to him. Grabbing both of Zuma's paws, he tried to pull him from the shark's mouth. "No! No!" Marshall yelled with tears in his eyes. The shark was pulling him along with Zuma. "Zuma, no! We can't lose you." "It's okay, Marshall. I'll be fine." Marshall looked at him with wide, tearful eyes. "If you don't let go, you'll die too," Zuma said, trying to be strong for his friend. "Zuma, you have to protect the others." Zuma yanked his paws from Marshall just before the great white wiggled back into the ocean with him. Marshall ran to the end of the shallow water and stared into the deep. He watched as crimson liquid began to surface to the top and let a tear slip into the ocean. In the reflection of the water, he watched as another red star faded out of sight from around the blood moon, leaving only 3 remaining stars. "Zuamama!" His voice echoed across the seas. He bawled and pounded the water mercilessly. "Come back," sniffed Zuma. "Zuma." As Marshall continued to grieve, he didn't even notice his pup tag light up. "Can anyone hear me?" spoke a familiar but raspy voice. "Need help?" "Marshall, need you, downtown. Truck, totaled, Katie, injured, need medical attention."
from today. Pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you.
Rocky laid on the ground near his overturned truck in pain. Using his remaining energy, he tried to stand, but winced when he applied pressure to his hind legs. There was a sharp pain that seemed to be coming from the left hind leg. He looked over his surroundings. His recycling truck was definitely in bad shape. The front was completely mashed in. There were huge dings and dents all over the back, and the vehicle was missing a wheel. He was able to spot Katie lying on the ground not far from the truck and began limping in her direction. Katie. He tried to call to her, his voice still raspy. Katie. He gently shook her, trying to wake her up, yet she was unresponsive. Katie, wake up. Still no response. He placed a paw on her wrist to try and feel her pulse. Oh no. His eyes widened. Katie, please don't be. Marshall had left the beach long ago. He was completely broken and vulnerable now, having to watch not one, but two of his friends die. He blamed himself for Zuma's death. If he had kept a lookout like Zuma told him, instead of cowering, he would still be here. Not to mention he would still be there if he didn't have to come back for Marshall. It's all my fault. He got eaten, because of me. The guilt was eating the Dalmatian alive, slowly making him go insane. He knew that Zuma always used to say that if he had to go, that he would rather take eternal rest in the deep blue, but the way that he was taken away surely wasn't one that he imagined before. Marshall was at the point where he wanted to escape this night. He just wanted it all to end. I can't take this anymore. I just can't. He slammed his fist on his dashboard. Why us? Why? Bloodbeard? We've never done anything wrong. Tears began to escape him again. Zuma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. As he continued to mentally beat himself up, his pup tag lit up and Rocky's voice came from the other end. Everyone. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to protect Katie. His voice sounded shaky. I need you all to meet me at the park. Come as fast as you can, it's urgent. Rocky was the first to arrive at the park, as he was the closest one. With his recycling truck totaled, he had to limp the entire way there. He waited for the others, and sometime shortly after, Marshall pulled up in his EMT truck. An expression of total defeat surrounded his features. Chase was the next to come. He slowly disembarked his vehicle, staring at the pink pup tag and collar he held in his paws, not looking up once. Rocky quickly noticed the spirit-breaking expressions on their faces, as well as the other missing members of the party. A grim realization started to seep in. Where are Skye and Zuma? He hesitantly asked. Neither pup could face him or speak. Guys. Stop fooling around here. Tears started to fill the mixed breed's eyes. Where are they? Where are they? As the other two bowed their heads in depression, Rocky's answer was confirmed. No. We can't be the only ones left. We just can't. He ran up to Marshall. Marshall, please tell me Zuma's still out there. This has to be a joke. Where is he? He began to shout. Give him back. Give him back. Give him vieja hack. Rocky fully bursted out into tears, falling freely on Marshall's chest. Marshall places an arm around him to comfort him, trying hard not to join him in his teary parade. It was plainly clear the pups were defeated, broken, spiritless. In a way, they were already dead. Bloodbeard had won. If there was any chance for survival, the three would have to leave town, and fast. We have to leave Adventure Bay," Rocky said. "We have to get somewhere safe. Whether it's Foggy Bottom or Carlos Jungle. We just have to leave." "What's the point?" Chase mumbled out, still staring at the pink collar within his paw. There was nothing but emptiness in his eyes and voice. "There's nothing left for us. Everyone else is gone, even Ryder. The PAW patrol is over. Even if we survive this night, I don't think I could go on. Just to stop feeling this pain. I'd rather Bloodbeard just stab through my heart right now." He raised his voice. Marshall and Rocky looked at him in shock. "Chase, you don't mean that," Marshall told him. "Yes, I do. That monster, he took Skye. Right in front of my eyes." Chase was now pouring out tears. "After I had just told her how I felt. After I told her I loved her." He fell to the ground, sobbing loudly. "I just can't go on. I can't live with the images of her death." He covered his ears. "I can't live with the sound of her voice. Her voice, begging me, pleading me to save her, and I failed. I failed. I failed. I failed." Chase wailed and wailed, projecting deep emotions. Letting out everything he held in, the moment of Skye's death. Rocky and Marshall could only watch in heartbreak. "I deserve to die. I deserve to die. There's nothing left. There's no one left." Marshall had heard enough. He quickly got closer to Chase. He raised his paw and smacked Chase with all his strength. Rocky gasped at this. Chase, confused by the impact, looked up, rubbing his cheek, and saw a teary-eyed Dalmatian before him. "Chase, you idiot. You're only hurting us by saying these things. Hurting me. Rocky and me, we both care about you. You have us left. You have me left. Am I not a good enough reason for you to survive? Do I really mean nothing to you?" Marshall's expression was a combination of anger, sorrow, and hurt. Chase continued to stare at Marshall in surprise. Why was he saying all these things? Chase couldn't come to any conclusion. "Marshall, what do you dash? Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last." All eyes opened wide in horror at the sound of the voice. An eerie wind blew around the three, surrounding them, filling them with dread as it moved all over the park. A tall figure appeared out in the distance and began to slowly walk toward the three, long ebony hair moving with the wind. The figure came closer. It was none other than the ghost pirate himself. Bloodbeard. "No. Not now." Rocky's voice shivered as he trembled with fear. As the ghost pirate continued to move towards them, the horrific memories of Skye flashed through Chase's mind. He could feel something burning up inside him. Anger. Sadness. Hate. "We have to go, now," Rocky shouted. Before he could even finish his sentence, Chase had already started charging toward the pirate. "Chase, stop." Marshall called out to him, but Chase didn't stop. He was locked in a mode of fury and rage. He bared his teeth as he closed in on Bloodbeard. The pirate drew back his arm and swung his hook at the shepherd. Chase dodged the hook and latched onto the murderer's arm with his teeth, furiously biting and clawing at him. Not a sound of pain erupted from Bloodbeard. He began swinging his arm, trying to shake off the shepherd, but Chase made sure to hold his grip. He wanted to make him pay. Pay for killing Skye, pay for killing Ryder, Rubble, and Zuma, pay for everything. Bloodbeard raised his hand and began to strangle Chase in an attempt to get him off. The pirate's strong grip around Chase's neck caused his intake of oxygen to become thinner and thinner. Chase's vision became blurred. Chase! Rocky yelled. Chase, unable to hold out anymore, had let go. Bloodbeard raised his hook and swung it. Crimson liquid drifted through the air, as if in slow motion. Chase was waiting to feel pain, but to his confusion, pain did not come. His vision slowly came back into focus, and he saw Marshall standing in front of him, a hook parting his chest. Chase's eyes became wide in shock. Marshall? You? Why? Marshall's response began with a weak smile. Because I really care about you. Chase could only watch as Marshall's beating heart was ripped right out of his chest. His now lifeless body fell to the ground, his white fur stained with crimson red. Marshall. Chase picked up the Dalmatian in his arms and held him crying as his own fur began to stain with his friend's blood. Rocky watched from a distance, speechless, unable to say even a word. In just a mere second, they had lost yet another friend. Chase lifted his head with even more rage burning in his eyes. He slowly laid Marshall's body back on the ground. You. Chase spoke with a dark voice. You just keep taking away everyone I care about. Taking away everyone I love. He clenched his teeth. No more. I've had enough. Chase charged for the pirate and pounced on his leg. He bit down on the leg repeatedly, but there was no effect. Bloodbeard swung his hook as Chase was trying to move away and cut a big gash on the shepherd's side. Chase winced at the pain, but there was no way that he was going to stop. There was no turning back. Whether he ran or fought back, he knew that no matter what, death would come his way. He continued to attack the pirate, and with each futile attempt, he accumulated more wounds and gashes. Chase. Stop. Just please stop. Rocky screamed within his mind. Chase's body was growing weaker and bloodier. Bloodbeard raised his hook, moving toward him. Is this really the best I can do? Chase asked himself, vision becoming blurry. Am I really unable to save anyone? He closed his eyes. Marshall. Skye. Everyone. Forgive me. Rocky felt his body go cold and numb as he watched Chase's head separate from his body and roll over in the grass. Bloodbeard turned to him and walked forward. No. Chase. Marshall. He stared at both his friends' lifeless bodies. Why? Why did you leave me? He choked up. The pirate continued to walk closer. Rocky's image reflected in the pirate's red eye, and the pirate's hook reflected in the mixed breeds. Without even thinking, Rocky ran out of the park, running down the street as fast as he could while limping, not looking back. He didn't know where to go or what to do. He just ran. He passed by many houses. He wanted to stop and ask someone, anyone for help, but he knew that it would only put them in danger as well, and he just couldn't do that. He came across an alleyway deep in town and tried to take a shortcut, but was met with a dead end instead. He could hear Bloodbeard's footsteps getting closer, the heavy breathing getting louder. Trapped in the center of 3 walls, he covered his eyes, shivering. Go away. Go away. Go away. Rocky? Rocky, wake up. Rocky opened his eyes, recognizing the voice. He almost cried. He couldn't believe it. He was back inside the lookout. Ryder, Skye, Rubble, Chase, Marshall, and Zuma were there standing, before his eyes smiling. You were having a bad dream, Rocky. Ryder told him. The others were silent. Rocky, still in disbelief, bursted into tears. Ryder, it was horrible. All of you were killed by a ghost pirate. I was the only one left. I felt so scared, so alone. I'm so sorry for making fun of you all. I was afraid all along. He wailed. The other pup still remained silent. "It's okay, Rocky. Everything's all right now." Ryder stretched his arms out, inviting Rocky in for a comforting hug. Rocky ran into Ryder's arms, embracing him. Rocky felt so happy. Happy to see everyone safe. Happy to know that everything he witnessed was just a horrible dream. As he continued his embrace, a few realizations came to him. For one, he didn't fall asleep in the lookout, he fell asleep in his pup house. 2, he could still feel pain in his leg, and lastly, Ryder's hug, it felt cold. Rocky gasped, eyes shooting open wide in shock.
Sternes har annan kar stern.
A hook was stabbed into Rocky's back. As Rocky gasped out in pain, he heard familiar heavy breathing. Raising his head up, he looked and saw the red pupilless eyeball on Ryder's face. At that moment, he knew he had been tricked. The setting of the lookout slowly faded away, revealing the alleyway that Rocky had ran to for cover. The one whom he had been embracing was none other than Bloodbeard. It was all an illusion. The murderous pirate had toyed with his mind, leading him to a false sense of security. The ghost pirate moved his face close to Rocky. Nose to nose, he began to speak. "Those who gaze upon the moon as I pass, shall soon find that night to be their last." He spoke without moving his mouth and removed the hook from Rocky's back as the mixed breed started to lose consciousness. Rocky slowly fell to the ground as he watched Bloodbeard walk away. This was no dream, but a living nightmare. This was hell. Is this my punishment? I'm so sorry, everyone. As Rocky hit the ground, the final red star vanished from around the blood moon, and not too long after, so did the ghost pirate. The red tint that covered the moon faded away, revealing a peaceful, yet deceiving night sky. The pups were heading back from a failed mission. A very failed mission. All 6 vehicles were swerving, each pup unable to focus on the road. No one in Adventure Bay would be able to ponder what had just happened. Marshall was bringing in the bad news in the back of his EMT-converted truck. Chase was leading the escort, then Marshall, and the other pups trailed behind. They were at a slow pace, which really signaled the depression. Everyone in Adventure Bay knew something was wrong when none of the pups stopped by to say hi. They knew something was worse when they realized all 6 pups were deployed, but Ryder wasn't leading on his ATV. Ryder wasn't there at all. The 6 vehicles pulled up to the lookout in silence. Marshall gradually got out of his truck and opened up the doors in the back of the ambulance. "I can't handle the sight," Skye said. This can't be," Chase said. In the back of Marshall's ambulance sat Ryder's body. Motionless, lifeless. The pups weren't going to be able to survive or live on without him. None of them wanted to. Marshall put his paw on Ryder's face. There was no body heat being generated. It was inevitable. All the pups collapsed and broke down. "I always thought he was immortal," Zuma mourned. "It's not right. He didn't deserve this. Why couldn't it have been me?" Ryder had fell to his death. None of the pups could have done anything to help him. The pups worked together to pull Ryder's body out of the ambulance. Once they laid him down, they all gathered around his body to mourn and mourn. They knew their lives were imminently going to end with his. Hours passed, and each pup had fallen asleep from exhaustion from crying too much. It was morning when they had woken up again to Ryder's body. They mourned for an hour longer, then figured they had to go show Adventure Bay what had happened. They worked together to put Ryder's body back into the ambulance, then formed a formation going into Adventure Bay as a sign of respect. Chase led Marshall, who had Rocky and Rubble on each side, tailed by Zuma and Skye. They each had their emergency lights on, however, were going slow. The people in Adventure Bay saw this and, not seeing Ryder, they knew something was seriously wrong. Katie knew what was wrong, and followed the pups, who came to a stop in front of Town Hall. Mayor Goodway came out of the building unaware of what was going on. "Hey Paw Patrol. Why are you all sad?" Marshall opened up the rear doors on the ambulance and showed her and Katie Ryder's body. They were both in complete shock. Mayor Goodway's good day turned around. There were a few citizens to witness, then a few turned into a bunch, then a bunch turned into everyone in Adventure Bay gathered around to see Ryder deceased with their own eyes. "He fell to his death," Chase said. "There was nothing we could have done," Rocky said. Captain Turbot, also having a good day, pulled into the dock to see everyone gathered at Town Hall. From the distance, it looked like a party. "Adventure Bay is having a party without me. This town will no longer be turbotless." Captain Turbot docked his boat and hurried over. "Adventure Bay can't have a party without Captain Turbot." A lot of people thought Captain Turbot was being disrespectful, but the pups knew he had no clue what was going on. "Captain Turbot, it's not what you think," Zuma said. Captain Turbot started to realize something was really wrong. Zuma escorted him to the ambulance. Captain Turbot realized this was the opposite of a party. He had no idea how to react when he saw Ryder's body. His good day was also turned bad. A day passed, and Ryder's funeral was arranged. Marshall pulled up with the casket with Ryder's body in the back of his ambulance. The funeral formation pulled up to the cemetery and the pups got out, and got in the lookout formation while Jake and Captain Turbot pulled the casket out of the ambulance. The pups tried to hold in their tears as well as they could as the ceremony was going on. Skye couldn't hold it in. She broke down and Rocky was there to comfort her. Skye crying caused Marshall, Rubble, and Zuma to break down as well. Chase was used to holding back tears, so he was able to stay in formation. With assistance from Mr. Porter and Mayor Goodway, along with Alex and Katie earning a place, all carried Ryder's casket to the grave. The pups got into the formation that they would be in when they're in the Paw Patroller. Zuma, Rubble, and Skye on one side, and Rocky, Chase, and Marshall on the other. When everyone was sat down, no one expected Mayor Humdinger to show up. Everyone looked back when he walked in. I heard the boy had died, and I just thought I'd come by and pay my respects. The service for Ryder lasted a long time. Everyone wanted to pay their respects and share stories about when the Paw Patrol had rescued them. Mayor Humdinger even came up. No one really had respect for him. As most of you know, I'm a big rival to Adventure Bay and the Paw Patrol. There's been many times where I have been frustrated from the Paw Patrol ruining my plans. There was some burning hate, but I never would have wished this on the poor boy. Since I never got to say this to you personally, kid, I'll say it now. I'm, sorry for what I have done. Rest well, Ryder. Mayor Humdinger sat back down in the back. The time to lower Ryder into the ground came. Each pup sat in resentment. Not even Chase could hold back the tears when he was lowered down. The service ended, and everyone but the 6 pups left his grave. Before the dirt was filled in, each pup set their pup tags on top of Ryder's casket. They spent that night next to the grave. The next morning, Mayor Goodway had to bring the news to the pups. I'm afraid that, without the supervision of Ryder, you can't stay at the lookout on your own. Please, Mayor Goodway. Let us stay. We won't cause trouble. If it was up to me, you could. But the law says you have to go to a foster home. No. Don't make us go. I don't have a choice. I want you to stay. Mayor Goodway walked the pups to the guy who would be taking care of them. This is Joey, he loves dogs. He'll take good care of you. The pups looked at Joey. He looked nice. This is the hardest part of my job. I never want to take a couple of pups away from their home. I don't have a choice, though. I promise, from the bottom of my heart, I will take good care of you pups until you're old enough to be on your own and come back. None of the pups wanted to go. They were given the opportunity to go to the lookout and grab what they wanted. They were promised the lookout and all their trucks would be there. None of the pups wanted to live on without Ryder, however. Each pup packed into Joey's Suburban and they were off to a larger city about an hour away.
Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there will be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Holding on to something you can carry by your side. When the world came to tear you down,
You stood alone and found that there is love all around you. So smile for the people that need to see you smile. We'll get by, even if it's just for a little while. If you smile.
The pup sat in depression as they headed to where they would live for the next little while. I promise you, pups. Things will get better. Once you're old enough to be able to return home, you can resume your duties in the Paw Patrol, Joey said. Things won't be the same without Ryder, Chase said. Leaving Adventure Bay is just icing on the cake. Ryder's death is what's dragging all of us down, Rocky said. Joey didn't want to make the pups more upset, so he stayed quiet. Zuma and Skye hadn't stopped crying since they had left Adventure Bay. For almost an hour, they were crying into each other's fur. Marshall hadn't taken his face out of Rocky's fur either. Eventually, the Suburban pulled into the driveway of Joey's house, and each pup got out. here we are. Your temporary home. It's not going to bring Ryder back, Skye said. I know. If I had the power to, I would. Joey and the pups walked into the house. It's a 4-bedroom house, so there has to be 2 in each room. There's one shared bathroom upstairs, but there's one in my room, and one down here. The kitchen is there, there's plenty of dog food and treats, go ahead and take whatever you want. Rubble went right in and found a bag of chips. That's human food, but I guess you can have some. Joey brought the pups upstairs. Go ahead and pick a room. They're all pretty much the same. There can be 3 of you in a room, all 6 of you, or split it evenly. It doesn't matter to me. Rocky and Marshall went into a room, Zuma and Skye went into another, then Chase and Rubble occupied the last. They each unpacked their bags, then set up however they wanted their rooms. That night eventually came. It was a slow night. Not any slower than it's been, however. Are you awake, Rocky? Marshall asked. Yeah, I'm awake. How long do you think we have to be here for? Only until Chase is old enough. Since he's the oldest, he can probably take custody of us once he can live on his own. I don't want to be here, but I don't want to go back to Adventure Bay without Ryder. We'll have to find a way to go around this. Ryder wouldn't want us to suffer forever. Zuma and Skye were having a similar conversation. Things won't be the same. I won't be able to eat twats the same way again, Zuma said. I don't want to live, Skye said. Zuma and Skye cuddled up next to each other. If the 6 of us stay together, we'll be able to manage. Chase was trying to sleep, but Rubble was watching Apollo the super pup. It was the only thing that would make him feel better. Chase couldn't stand the TV going while he was trying to sleep. Rubble, can you go watch that somewhere else? Like where? Rubble got up and joined, maybe with the other pups. I'm not gonna let this be the end, Chase said. Rubble got up and joined Zuma and Skye. Chase had the room to himself. The next day passed, with each pup able to somewhat play again. Joey didn't know what to do with each pup's lack of motivation. The next night came, and Rubble was with Zuma and Skye, and Chase was alone again. I'm not gonna let this be the end, Chase said. There's no way Ryder just fell down that cliff. There has to be more to this. He got out of his bed and started pacing around. What if one of the pups killed him and is masking this flawlessly? What if? Oh, I have to get this out. Chase woke up Rocky and Marshall, and the 3 of them met in the room with Zuma, Skye, and Rubble. Alright pups, I brought you in here because we're going to find the mystery behind Ryder's death. He fell to his death. There's no doubt of that, Marshall said. I'm not doubting his cause of death. I'm doubting what caused his fall. He didn't just fall on his own. That's not Ryder. No one was up there. Only Skye could have seen anything up there. She didn't see anyone, Rocky said. I wasn't looking where Ryder was. If I was, we could've. Skye broke down. This wasn't Chase's intentions, I'm sorry Skye. I didn't mean to get you to start crying. I just want the guilty party to admit they're wrong. What do you mean by that? Rubble asked. I really hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling one of you are involved, and are masking it really well. Every pup became hurt by that. None of them had anything to do with Ryder's death other than not making sure he was okay. If any of you are guilty, just do us all a favor and fess up. That's all we want. Each pup started scolding Chase. Chase knew immediately his theory was wrong. Alright, none of us are responsible. But that's not good enough for me. I know for a fact Ryder's death wasn't an accident. It's done, Chase. Forget it, Zuma said. It's not done. in fact, it's just begun. We're going to investigate this. None of the pups were following Chase. We have nowhere to start. We have no way to get around, and there's no way Joey will let us go and leave like that. Pups, there's 6 of us. For years, we've made such a good team. 3 of us are capable of driving a truck on the street. I see Joey's Suburban, I see keys to that Suburban downstairs, and Adventure Bay is an hour away. Are you saying steal a car to go investigate something you have no proof of? Rocky asked. If you pups truly miss Ryder and want to know what caused his death and made our lives miserable, you'll join me. I'll go. Ryder meant way too much to all of us, Zuma said. If he's in, I'm in, Skye said. Rocky shook his head in disbelief that he was about to make this idiotic decision. Count me in. I'm just as dedicated as everyone else. Marshall and Rubble didn't want to get in trouble, but they also both wanted to join the pups. Come on, you two. It's do or die, Chase said. I trust you, Chase, I'm going, Rubble said. Wah. I don't want to be the only one left behind. I'm going, Marshall said. Smart choice, pups. Now let's leave Joey an apology note. The pups went downstairs, and Chase left Joey a note. Joey, I'm sorry we're doing this. We can't stand being in mystery about what happened to Ryder. We're heading back to Adventure Bay to investigate Ryder's death. We have no other way to get there, so we have to use your Suburban. Me, Rocky, and Marshall each have Class A driver's licenses, so we are certified to drive a road vehicle. I'm sorry about having to steal your car, but it's the only way. We'll keep in touch, Chase. Alright, pups, let's head out. The pups packed into the Suburban once more, then headed to Adventure Bay in Joey's Suburban. Chase knew his way back. It was still night by the time they got back to Adventure Bay. They had to hurry through and go to the lookout unnoticed so no one would know they escaped and stole a vehicle while they were at it. All the circuit breakers on lookout were off, and there were automatic lights on it they had to navigate through with no power. They each got their pup packs, all their gear, then found the keys to their trucks. Since they put their tags in with Ryder, they had to use the GPS call feature on each of their trucks to communicate. They parked Joey's Suburban in front of the lookout, then off-road away from the lookout. They couldn't go through Adventure Bay and risk getting spotted. The sun was starting to come up as they got to the spot Ryder fell. Joey woke up to check on the pups. Doing that, he discovered every room being empty. Pups? Where are you? He checked everywhere in the house, but they were nowhere to be found. I'm not playing. I'm starting to get worried. If you're here, please come out. He knew they weren't there. He immediately dialed up Mayor Goodway. Hey Joey, it's early, what's going on? Mayor. The pups aren't here. They got out during the night. I don't know where they went. What? You mean the pups ran away? I gotta look for them. I don't know where they could have went. Adventure Bay is too far away. Joey ran outside to see the Suburban gone. He didn't piece it together, because he didn't think about the fact that these pups could drive. My Suburban is gone. What if they got kidnapped? I'm going to send out a code red. We'll search with you. Thanks, Mayor Goodway. Joey ran around, panicked. He eventually found the note Chase left. He read it, and it made a lot of sense. It just made him more worried and a little angered. He was about to call Mayor Goodway, but he was getting a call from her. Joey. Your Suburban is front of the Paw Patrol's lookout, and all the pups' vehicles are gone. Yep, I just found Chase's note. He's so apologetic about stealing my Suburban, but I don't think he knows I have another car. I'm afraid the pups might do something crazy. I know what their intentions are. I'll be there in an hour. Joey hurried up and headed out to Adventure Bay in his 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. The pups couldn't stand the sight of the place Ryder's life ended, but they had to deal with it. Within seconds, Chase picked up a smell. Ryder wasn't alone. Chase found traces of Ryder's blood. Something happened before he fell down the cliff. Marshall, was there any signs of a wound not from a fall? I didn't do an autopsy. It isn't my job. You're a medical expert, though. Ryder has blood right here. He was hit before he fell. There's someone else's scent here. Pups. Ryder was murdered. All the pups flipped out, completely shocked. Someone really does hate us. Who would want to kill Ryder? He did nothing wrong. We're on a search now. We're going on an investigation, pups. First stop, Foggy Bottom. We're going to interrogate Humdinger first. All the pups packed into their vehicles and headed to Foggy Bottom. The fog was a pain to drive through. They eventually got to the bench Mayor Humdinger always sat at. He had his catastrophe crew with him. We did it, kittens. It was a success. Mayor Humdinger did his evil laugh, but returned to a seemingly normal state, whistling and looking suspicious when he saw the trucks come in. We're here. We have a good reason to believe it was you, Chase said. Oh, I see the Paw Patrol is still in working order, Humdinger said. Alive and well. You evil schemes will never stop us, Zuma said. Oh shoot. I guess that means even without Ryder, you can still figure everything out yourselves, huh? You're evil and heartless, Skye yelled. I wouldn't go there. We know you did it. It was you, Rubble yelled. You have to prove it first. We can bring you in for extra questioning. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say we can't, Chase said. My offense isn't that extreme. It is. You made us suffer. All the pups teamed up to try drag him. You're the one responsible for Ryder's death. You will pay. Mayor Humdinger realized they weren't on him for what he really did. Wait, what? You think I killed Ryder? I never would have done that. The pups stopped tugging. What did you think we were talking about? Oh, other stuff, but that's besides the point. I never would have wished death upon that boy. That's not something I would have done. Chase knew how to read Mayor Humdinger left and right. He knew he was telling the truth. Pups, he's not lying. He's innocent. We have to go back and figure out more of what's going on, Chase admitted. The pups each gave Mayor Humdinger a death stare, but knew they didn't have the right to take him in. They got in their trucks and headed back to Adventure Bay. They figured the news of them escaping would be out. Right as that thought came in, the pups each got a call from Joey on their GPS screens. Pups? Don't scare me like that again. Sorry, Joey, each pup said in unison. Come back to Adventure Bay. I know you pups want to be here and drive your vehicles, but you can't. Joey, we have to. You can't. I'm serious. We have to. We found something suspicious with Ryder's death. He was murdered. Joey was shocked the pups had figured that out. Come back to Adventure Bay and explain it all. The pups were already heading back, so it was convenient. When they got there, Joey immediately approached the pups. You worried the hell out of me. Don't do that. Sorry, Joey. We had to figure out what really happened to Ryder. We have a clue to what happened, Chase said. So how do you know Ryder was murdered? There's someone's scent, and his blood was on the top of the mountain. We think he was attacked, then thrown off. It explains why he has gashes rather than shattered insides, Marshall said. Out of nowhere, they heard a roaring V8 coming into town. They all recognized it as Jake's rash Mustang. He blew right by everyone, which was unusual. The pups got in their trucks and followed him. He stopped at the emergency room. Jake. Are you okay? Rocky asked. This is bad. It's horrible. Jake pulled out Everest, who the pups couldn't even tell whether she was alive. He ran in carrying her. Chase marked Jake's illegal park, while the rest of the pups ran in with him. The doctors pulled up a stretcher so Jake didn't have to keep carrying her. What happened? Rocky asked. I heard her scream, then I heard someone battering her. They knew I was coming out because they were out of sight before I got to her. We'll take care of her, sir. We can't promise she'll pull through though, a doctor said. Marshall assisted the doctors with the emergency operations. Jake started to tear up. This can't be happening. Don't leave me, Everest. The other pups were starting to mourn her as well. The doctors tried all they could, but it wasn't working. She went flatline, but the doctors were able to shock her back to life. After an hour of trying to get her stable, the doctors were able to get her to function on her own. Jake. Everest. You're alive. I don't feel like it. The pups all gathered around her. She was having a hard time breathing and talking. Are you okay, Everest? Chase asked. I've been better. Rocky put his paw on Everest's. I'll be here for you. So will everyone else. Thanks, Rocky. Ugh. Everest lost consciousness. All right, pups, we want to stay with Everest, but we have to keep searching. We're going to investigate who did this to Everest. It might lead us to more clues with Ryder. Chase said. Each pup hesitantly left Everest, got in their vehicles, then headed to Jake's mountain. They got to the cabin where Everest was attacked. Chase picked up multiple scents. One was new, and the other was the same scent from Ryder's death site. Pups, someone's after us. It's the same scent that was at Ryder's death site. The pups started freaking out again. Now they knew their lives were in danger. The thing to do is stick together, and never leave a pup behind. Rocky said. That's right. And, where's Marshall? Huh, funny, Rubble said sarcastically. Really, he's not here. Marshall. They all went into panic and looked for Marshall. After a good 30 seconds of panic, Marshall came out of the cabin carrying a rifle. Pups? I found this gun in the cabin. It might be a clue. Everest wasn't shot. That's Jake's hunting rifle. Oh, oops. Marshall put the rifle back, then walked out. We have to track this guy down. I have no idea where to start though, Chase said. Skye looked in the air for vehicle tracks. She found tire tracks that lead away from the crime scene. It hadn't snowed, so there was nothing to cover the tracks. I found tracks from a truck. I'll follow them and see where they go. Good job, Skye. Don't get shot down. The pups followed the tracks from the ground. It seemed they were able to trace it down, but the snow was gradually fading as they went down the elevation. It's getting harder to trace it down. The snow isn't as heavy, Skye said. By the time they got to the bottom, there was no snow left and no way to track down the vehicle. The pups started whimpering at the lost advantage, but Rocky thought of something. Pups? We passed a few cars on the way up. We can go back and look at the tracks left by the vehicle to try to determine what it was, then pull the tapes on our dash cams to see if anything matches. The pups admired Rocky's idea. They went back a few miles, then observed the tracks. It was a large pickup, a dually. They headed back to Adventure Bay and observed Chase's dash cam. There were mainly vans and SUVs going down, but they eventually came across a white Ford F-350. The people in it seemed at unease as the Paw Patrol passed. Bingo! Those are our guys. Chase rewound the video a few milliseconds to get the license number. It was a British Columbian plate. We got it, pups. Look for that license number. Chase said, we'll pair up and search for every white 2011 and newer F-350. The pups got in pairs and headed out. 3 F-350s were found, but none had the license number. Pups, they could have put different plates on it. Start pulling over every F-350 you see. 4 F-350s were pulled over by the time Rocky and Marshall came across a parked Dawn with the correct license number. We found the truck. Marshall yelled. Quiet down. Put a tracker on it. Rocky scolded. The truck owners came out because they heard Marshall's voice. Rocky stuck the tracker on just in time. The two had to hide as quickly as possible. However, the owners saw the pups' trucks. Rocky and Marshall realized they were at their base when more people than just the truck owners came out. They're here. Search the place. Both pups started picking up scents. They figured out who the leader was by the scents. He didn't look familiar to either of them. What could he have against us? I have no clue, but we have to move. They came across a phone so they could call Chase. Come on, Chase, pick up. Who's this? Oh, what's going on, pups? We found the truck. Rocky said in a whisper. What's wrong? They know we're here. We have to find a way out. Chase brought the other pups in, all paws on deck. Rocky and Marshall are. No, Chase. They have guns. Oh, then run. Rocky and Marshall had to find a way to dodge the searchlights. It was broad daylight, so it wouldn't hurt much, but it'd mean they're in sight. We're going to have to leave our trucks here. Rocky said. We can't. We'll need them. How else are we going to get out of here? Their main focus is our trucks. If we come within 50 feet, they'll fire on us. We have two options, run into the forest or steal a car. How are we going to steal a car? Rocky barked quietly, dimensional cutters and lighter. You know how to hotwire. More or less. They noticed a guard very focused looking through the scope of an AW sniper rifle. Or we could pickpocket some keys. Let's hope this guy has a fast car. Rocky barked, needle nose pliers. Rocky, scared, approached the guard. He hoped that Marshall would be able to use his pupfu if the guard realized he was there. He reached into pocket of the guard and pulled out whatever was in there. Luckily, they were keys. Rocky and Marshall left the room. Rocky wiped the sweat from his head. Thank God. Let's see what this guy has, an Acura. We should be able to make a clean escape. A 2013 Acura TL was sitting outside the other side of the warehouse. The two pups hurried over and got in. It was backed in, so Rocky was able to drive right out. Driving human vehicles is so weird. He drove inconspicuously to the exit, then when the guards could potentially see them, he gunned it. The 305 horsepower, 3.7-liter V6 was really nice right about now. By the time the guards could get to a car, they were long gone. Rocky was having a hard time reaching everything. At least this one's an automatic. It'd suck not being able to reach the clutch. The other pups blew right by them. Rocky activated the Bluetooth on the TL. Chase. Turn back. They're coming. Rocky? What are you in? I couldn't grab the trucks. I stole someone's Acura. What? Alright, we'll catch up. They all got back to Adventure Bay and grouped up. What happened back there? Chase asked. We found the truck, they discovered us, and we had to find a new way out. They had our truck surrounded. Well, we might have some evidence here. Open the trunk. When Rocky opened the trunk, there were a couple of assault rifles in the back. Arms trafficking. Looks like this is an organization rather than a lone guy, Chase observed. Wait a minute. Chase picked up Mayor Humdinger's scent on the weapons. Humdinger lied to us. I can't believe I believed him. What happened? Skye asked. Mayor Humdinger is involved. His scent is on these rifles. The pups, once again, freaked out. We have a... The Teal's Bluetooth system was getting a call. The contact ID read Mr. Sanchez. Rocky answered, hello? Very clever. You figured out who killed your mortal master. Who are you, Mr. Sanchez? Well, I'm an arms trafficking boss. I killed that kid because he would be in my way. I didn't think I would have to kill the pups too. That'll come later. For now, I need that car back. I'll make you pups a deal. We'll place the 2 trucks in a location. You bring the car, leave it, then take your trucks back. We kinda need our trucks, so you have a deal, Marshall said. We're not going to negotiate with a bad guy. Chase said. Well, in that case, I could track you down and kill all 6 of you. Your choice. Chase, you're not the right pup for this, Rocky said. Chase got angered and walked away. I'll make you another deal. If you don't come after us for killing that kid, we'll spare your lives. Nope. Not gonna happen. You'll pay for his death. The Paw Patrol always comes out on top. Suit yourself. If you mess with my business, you'll pay. The car deal still stands. I'll put a location on the car's GPS. Mr. Sanchez hung up. Within a few seconds, a location was set on the GPS. Do you really think he's just gonna let us take the trucks? It might be a trap. Chase said. I agree, it's a big risk, but we need our trucks, Rocky said. We have the keys, so we can go in, leave this car, and get the trucks as quickly as possible, Marshall said. Are your trucks worth dying for? Rubble asked. We won't die. We'll be in and out, Rocky said. Chase didn't like this idea. Even if they were fast enough, they could still be chased down. If Marshall slips, it'll slow down the retrieval time by a lot. I'll go in with Rocky to get the trucks, Chase said.
But. Marshall wanted to get the trucks.
We can't risk you tripping and getting caught. You want to avenge Ryder, right? Skye asked. If you die you can't. Marshall had to give in and let Chase take over. First let's take the guns out of the trunk. We can use them as evidence against Humdinger, Chase said. They did that, then they headed out. Marshall was driving Chase's truck. Chase briefed everything. Zuma, Skye, stay a good distance away and patrol the area. Marshall, Rubble, you stay right at the entrance and make sure no one tries to come in and attack us. Rocky, you know the drill, be as fast as you can. Green means go. Rocky pulled into the small gravel lot as fast as he could. Rubble and Marshall quickly blocked the road with their trucks and kept guard. Rocky and Chase both got out of the car the minute Rocky put it in park. Rocky rushed out of the car and jumped into his truck, and Chase slid across the hood of the TL and jumped into Marshall's truck. They were scared the trucks wouldn't start, but they did. As soon as the truck started, they were out of there. Chase was smart to be on top of everything and get out of there. A few guys were about to jump out of the forest and start shooting. If they took any longer, it would have happened. Chase. Everyone. We have company. Skye said. Are they chasing us? Rocky asked. Yeah. And they're not in anything slow. As they reached 100 miles per hour, they saw 3 Z-07 Corvettes come into view. Are you serious? Chase was in disbelief. They started to receive gunfire. The pups panicked, but kept going. Marshall. You're driving my truck. Deploy the road spikes. How? There's a button on right next to the shifter. Marshall pushed the ejection seat instead. He went flying. Skye caught him with the harness. Rocky remembered he had a box of nails in the back of his truck. He opened up the hatch and the nails spilled out. That stopped the Corvettes coming after them. Are we safe? Chase asked. I think so. Let's head back fast. They all got calls on their GPS screens. It was Mr. Sanchez. Very clever. You knew we'd come after you. I guess you're too clever to take the time to kill. All we wanted was our trucks. We gave you the car. I don't know why you have a problem with that. It's not even my car. I only cared about the guns in the trunk. I guess I'll stick to my word. Don't get in my way, and you can keep your lives. Mr. Sanchez hung up. Chase got worried. We took the guns out of the trunk of that car. I think he's still gonna. Mr. Sanchez called again. You took the guns. That does it. We're hunting you down. You think we're scared? Chase questioned. All the other pups looked scared. You're not. I was able to kill the boy. I was able to kill that snow pup. I believe I can kill you all too. Hate to ruin your mood, but Everest pulled through. Her owner was right there. We will win, so don't waste your energy. Chase hung up this time. All right, we're heading back to Foggy Bottom. Humdinger lied to us. We're going to interrogate him and get more information. All the pups headed to Foggy Bottom and found Mayor Humdinger. All the pups circled around him. What do you pups want now? You're involved with Ryder's death. We know you are. Now you're going to the interrogation room. Chase yelled. Whoa. I already told you. I wasn't involved. I wouldn't have done to Ryder. Why does everything point to me? All the pups teamed up and dragged Mayor Humdinger to the ground. Chase got on top of Mayor Humdinger and got right in his face. There's a gun dealer that killed Ryder. That particular gun dealer happened to have a supply with your scent on it. You gave him a supply of guns to kill Ryder as a trade. Mayor Humdinger thought about that shipment of guns he was forced to smuggle. That's what he had originally hid from the pups. Wait, what? If you let me up, I'll explain everything. The pups let off and Mayor Humdinger sat back onto his bench. So, there's a gun supplier not too far from here. There's also a gun dealer not too far from here either. That gun dealer came up to me and offered me $40,000 to smuggle a crate full of firearms from the supplier to his warehouse, and I had no idea that was the one that would kill Ryder. We're going to find all the clues behind this, so tell the truth now. Rubble said. All right, I should have told you pups earlier. After I delivered the order, he kinda asked about nearby obstacles, people that might get in his way, and I kinda mentioned the Paw Patrol. I had no idea he was going to do such a thing. I'm sorry. Chase started yelling at Mayor Humdinger for not telling them earlier. Skye started crying, causing 3 pups to cry. 3 pups crying caused Mayor Humdinger to start crying. Mayor Humdinger crying turned into everyone but Chase crying. I'm sorry. I had no idea it would come to this. If I would have known, I wouldn't have said it. I didn't know he would kill Ryder. I didn't know you pups would suffer. Why didn't you tell us earlier? Chase asked. He said that if I told anyone about his whereabouts, he'd come after me. I was scared. The pup sat with Mayor Humdinger. I always saw you as a heartless monster, Skye said, but after seeing your remorse, I realize you do have a heart. Just not a brain, Zuma added. The least you can do for us is tell us where this supplier is, Rocky said. Well, when you go up to the building, proceed with caution. They'll be armed. If you head north on the highway, there'll be an unmarked exit. That unmarked road will take you right to the supplier. Thanks, Mayor Humdinger. Pups, you all know where to go. The pups wiped their tears and got in their vehicles again. They headed north on the local highway, then found the exit. Skye, try to find the supplier from the air. Right as Skye started looking, she got a radio transmission, most likely from the supplier warehouse. Attention civilian helicopter, you are in a no-fly zone. Divert your course, or we'll be forced to shoot you down. Wait. No. I'm just flying through with my friends. The person over the radio wasn't expecting Skye's high-pitched voice. You're just a kid. What are you doing flying a helicopter? I'm a pup actually. I'm on a serious mission. A mission that involves your supplier warehouse. We need permission to approach. How do you? Never mind. Permission granted, but try anything and we will open fire. Chase, we can approach. Just go up with caution. The pup slowly approached the warehouse. A few guards armed with M4s came up to them. What's your intentions? The first guard asked. We want to know some information about a dealer you supply. Is there any chance we can speak to a boss or something? Chase explained. Who's the dealer? Mr. Sanchez. That's the only thing we know him by. All right, proceed through, we'll escort you. There was a Pontiac G8 with amber overhead lights that escorted the pups through. The place was the size of a large college campus, but a lot scarier. They eventually came up to a building, and each pup was commanded to park in a 1-by-1 formation. When Skye landed, they had to push the helicopter into the formation. The pups were escorted on foot to the boss of the supplier. They expected a guy a lot like Mr. Sanchez, big, bulky and gray-haired. This guy looked a little bit like Fred Savage. So I heard you pups need some info on a dealer. Mr. Sanchez killed our human. We're trying to figure out how to take this guy down, because we're also in danger, Chase said. You pups look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere? Have you heard of the Paw Patrol in Adventure Bay? That's us? Wait, really? I heard about you. I'll help you out here. What do you need? We need to figure out how to take him down. And, is there any chance we can get some guns? He is a bit troublesome. I wouldn't just go in and kill him. He's a lot more powerful than you think. And when it comes to getting guns, I only sell guns to suppliers. If I give them away to civilians, they'll be traced to me a lot easier. How many dealers do you sell to? Legal or illegal? I'm not sure if any legal gun dealer will sell a bunch of guns to a couple of pups. There's only one other arms dealer I supply to in this part of Canada. It's about an hour south. I'm not willing to help you take down Mr. Sanchez myself, because it'll make a big impact on my sales and he'll come after me. I will tell you this. Once Mr. Sanchez is dead, you don't have to worry about his guys staying around. They don't like him either. Once he's out, you all are safe. Thanks for your help, Mr. Savage. Fred Savage. Wait, that is Fred Savage. What's he doing supplying guns to dealers in Canada? It's besides the point. The pups were escorted to the freeway and headed back to Adventure Bay. It's 3 a.m, Chase said, we got a lot done, so we can't complain. I'm going to bed when we get back, Rubble said. All the pups agreed. Once they got back, they headed straight to the lookout. They switched on all the circuit breakers so they could get power. They figured Joey was already asleep. They each slept about 8 hours and got up around 11. They knew they had to get going. They had information, and they had to execute the plan. They got back on the freeway and headed to the dealer Fred Savage had told them about. Same deal here, pups, don't just pull up, proceed with caution. When they pulled up, these guys seemed a bit friendlier than all the other guards. The guards approached with their weapons, concealed rather than being out for intimidation. Are you pups lost? No, we just have a big problem. We need some help from you guys. Is there any chance we can talk to your leader? Chase asked. I'll go talk to him and see what I can do. The guard went into a building to talk to the leader. There were other guards standing around that didn't seem at unease by their presence. The fact that these guards seemed unfazed gave the pups two thoughts. Either something really bad was about to happen, or this dealer was very unorganized. The guard and a big dude that was probably 6 feet 7 inches and weighed 300 pounds came out. This dude looked like JJ Watt. I heard you pups needed my expertise in the arms dealing industry. All the pups trembled in this dude's presence. He was massive. Yeah. We need to take out another dealer. We were wondering what the prices for your weapons are. Well, the fact that you're a bunch of pups doesn't seem too promising. It's almost jailbait for me. We're highly trained actually. Have you ever heard of the Paw Patrol? The what patrol? We have no money, Rocky said. Is there any way we can borrow some guns and ammo, then bring them back for a reduced price, or do something in return? Chase asked. I don't think you have a clue how this business works. I'm in it to make money. I don't really care about the welfare of a couple of pups. Please. We've been suffering for the last week. Skye pleaded. Our lives are in danger too. Marshall added. This guy has to pay for what he did. Rubble said. Didn't you say this guy is an arms dealer too? Yeah. He has more firepower than we'll ever have. Chase said. Come on into the warehouse. What's this guy's name? Mr. Sanchez. He's about an hour northwest. Oh, that guy. I'll tell you what. He's my biggest rival. You aren't spies, are you? No, all the pups said in unison. All right, well, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you all the guns and ammo you need if you take him out. You'll be doing my dirty work in return for everything you need. So, you're going to be using us? Marshall asked. Yeah. It's a deal. He'll be gone before long, Chase said. Mr. What, but you can just call me JJ. JJ What said as he shook Chase's paw. Wait, what? That's JJ What. What's he doing as a gun dealer in Canada? First Fred Savage, now him? Ugh, back to the point. Chase. Good to do business with you. Standing on 2 legs, Chase wasn't much higher than JJ Watt's knees. He led the pups to the warehouse full of guns and ammo. What are you pups going to need? That's a lot of stuff. What don't you have? JJ Watt helped the pups out. He found 2 mountable missile cannons. He grabbed them and walked out to Skye's helicopter. Boom, you now have an attack chopper. After a few hours of figuring out waddle work, the pups had everything they needed. They packed all the arms into the back of Rocky's truck. The truck's payload was getting exceeded so much that the rear leaf springs were resting on the bump stop. I don't think my truck likes this. Come on, let's get going back to Adventure Bay. JJ What waved as the pups left. I really hope they take him down. That's a lot of money lost if they don't. The pups got back to the lookout and set everything up. That's when they realized they went overkill. There were mounted miniguns on the forklift on the Rocky's truck. Skye's helicopter was now a gunship. Marshall's water cannon had been converted to a machine gun, and each pup had 2 assault rifle mount brackets on their pup packs. Out of nowhere, they heard gunshots in Adventure Bay. They hurried into town, forgetting about all the weaponry on their vehicles. What happened? Chase asked. Joey had gotten grazed in the shoulder and there were 2 dead guys on the ground. These guys tried to attack me. Luckily I had my, what, why? Joey saw the weaponry on the trucks. We're avenging Ryder. We had the right contacts, we have all the info. Tomorrow, we're attacking, Chase said. No. Don't do it. Not even I'm willing to do that. Ryder didn't mean as much to you as he did to us. You didn't even know him. Pups, you have that wrong. There's a reason you went with me rather than someone in Adventure Bay. You pups got handed to me. Mayor Goodway pawned us off? No. I inherited you pups. That's why I'm so scared to lose you. How did you inherit us? I didn't tell you this earlier. I'm surprised you didn't figure it out. I'm Ryder's father. All the pups went into shock. How have we not met you? Ryder never said anything about you. You were in his will to be handed down to me. I didn't even know I'd be taking in 6 pups until the day before Ryder's funeral. We didn't see you at his funeral. I was there. I just didn't speak. I don't know why I didn't tell you earlier. You want to avenge your son, don't you? Yeah, but attacking an arms dealer is a really dumb idea. We're willing to die to avenge Ryder. Once this is over, we won't have a reason to live anyway. In his will, Ryder said to take care of you pups. Letting you do this is not taking care of you. Letting us suffer isn't taking care of us either. You can come with us if it makes you feel better, but we're doing this. Are you sure you want to do this? Nothing can stop us at this point. I'm afraid I'm not willing to get involved. I'm going to have to break the promise I gave Ryder and not watch over you. Joey walked to his Roadrunner and drove off. Every pup but Chase started to feel for Joey. They could each understand how he felt. Skye started to feel selfish. I feel bad for Joey, Skye said. I do too, and if we come out alive, we'll be there for him, Chase said. I'm gonna be honest with you, Chase. I don't think any of us are coming out alive, Rocky said. Weary fighting twained gun experts. Weary not twained, Zuma said. Where'd the confidence go? Chase asked. Weary fighting twained gun experts. Weary not twained, Zuma said. I feel like this is a mistake, Rubble said. We're just going to have to accept the fact that Ryder is gone and cope. Doing this won't help anything, Marshall said. Chase was starting to get angered and feel betrayed. Ryder was more important to us than anything else. We're just going to give up on this. All the pups somewhat turned their backs. After all we've done to get here, you're just going to give up. What about Everest? What about us? They're going to kill us either way. If they kill us, so be it. We'll be with Ryder, Rocky said. Chase was in disbelief, but he wasn't going to stretch. He had everything he needed in his truck, so he was going to go without the rest. So be it then. I'm going alone. I'm not going to abandon what I started and worked hard for. Chase got in his truck and headed to the compound to take on this challenge, alone. Chase. Don't do this. There's another way out. The pups tried to discourage him, but it didn't work. They each got in their trucks to head to the lookout and dismount the weaponry from the trucks and their pup packs. Someone watch calls coming in and news to see when it's safe to get his body, Skye said. All the pups but Rocky headed to the lookout. Rocky wasn't going to abandon a friend. That's not what being a Paw Patrol pup is about. I'm going with him. I'm not going to let him go out and die by himself. Rocky did an U-turn and gunned it. Rocky. Not you too. If he's going, I'm going too. I'd rather keep my dignity than my life. The other pups couldn't believe it. Still, they all headed to the lookout. However, now Marshall wasn't willing to abandon this. Those are 2 of my closest friends going on a suicide mission. I'm not going to leave them behind either. Marshall pulled the e-brake and went to catch up to Chase and Rocky. Marshall! Zuma yelled. The 3 remaining pups just looked at each other. Let's just catch up to Joey. Chase, wait up, Rocky said. You can't stop me from doing this, Chase said. I know I can't, so I'm going in with you. You finally came to your senses. So did I, Marshall said, coming from nowhere. Still nothing from the other 3? Chase asked. I think they bailed. To Chase and Rocky. Think again, Skye said. Zuma and Rubble also came in behind them. Chase was proud of the Paw Patrol again. Ryder would be proud. They found a vantage point not far from the compound, but far enough to where the helicopter wasn't noticeable. What's the game plan, Chase? Marshall asked. I need to scope the place first, Chase said. You have your spy helmet. Let's check it out, Rocky said. The pups approached the base in silence. There was a large hill right behind the compound that could be used as an advantage. There was a large, almost impenetrable chain-link fence surrounding the compound, so the only way in was through the front. However, an aerial attack was easy. What do you see, Chase? Rubble asked. A bunch of LAPs, light armored patrol vehicles, all of which aren't in use, however there's a few guards next to one. There's a few snipers, inattentive, yet on call. Turrets on either side, a guard picking his nose, a couple of guards at the front with assault rifles. Honestly, this won't be that hard if we plan right. Besides that RPG, an aerial attack will be easy. Back to the vantage point. I have a plan. The pups headed back to where they parked their trucks, and Chase discussed his plan. Rubble and Zuma went to the hill with sniper rifles. Once they take out necessary guards, Skye would come in with her helicopter, take out a few LAPs, then Rocky would come in with his truck with the guns on the forklift prongs, while Marshall and Chase would be in the back ready to jump out. Once inside, everything will be impromptu.
Hey you, look kinda grim today. Pull through, there would be a brighter day. So hold your head up high and breathe in deep.
I know there's something heavy on your mind. Control is something you will never find. Hold
Rocky and Skye got in position while Rubble and Zuma scoped everything out, literally. They took out the opposing snipers and the RPG, making it safe for Skye while not alerting anyone. Skye flew in, and quickly was heard. Mr. Sanchez asked a guard what it was. It looks like one of those Paw Patrol mutts are coming in and, oh. What? Does the helicopter that girl pup flies usually have guns on it? What are you talking about? They suddenly heard an explosion from Skye firing a rocket and a compound. Mr. Sanchez immediately sounded the alarm and prepared for battle. Yeah. Take that. Rubble yelled. I'm going to circle back around and fire a few more rockets, then the coast is clear. Skye shot out a few more guards and LAPs just in case they decided to use those. That's your cue, Rocky. Chase said. Rocky gunned it and bashed through the front gates. Using a simple switch, he was able to fire the miniguns mounted on his truck and take out all the guards in his path. We're in, Skye, no more rockets, Rocky said. Got it, switching to guns. Rocky realized he missed a few guards and was receiving fire. Hold on back there. Rocky warned Chase and Marshall. He pulled the e-brake and shot all around him as the truck spun. He slammed the brakes to stop the momentum, then gunned it again. He realized there were more guards coming out of the compound. Open the door, let us fire. Chase said. Rocky opened the door and Chase and Marshall were able to start shooting. Marshall couldn't aim. The recoil from the rifle was knocking him down. Rocky pulled the e-brake again to face the guards head-on. Chase, however, fell out. Rocky, turn back. Chase fell out back here. Don't worry about it, I got this. Chase said. Chase ran into the compound and took cover under an LAPV. He was able to shoot and not be discovered. The recoil from the rifle was starting to hurt his back. Although the pup pack was taking all the shock, his back was getting awkwardly bent. Zuma, Rubble, move in toward up to the compound. Chase commanded. Zuma and Rubble followed the orders and moved into the compound. Zuma and Rubble switched from the AW sniper rifles to the M4S on their pup packs. They snuck into the compound unnoticed. They ducked behind a couple of crates. No one in the compound was firing, but they were all on alert, and some heading in front of the compound to try to take out the other pups. What do we do now? We don't want them knowing we're here, Rubble said. I thought you had a plan, Zuma said. Rubble radioed Chase, what exactly do we do when we get in? We don't have the firepower these guys do. I'm about to head in there. Be as stealthy as possible. Rubble didn't like that idea. He wasn't exactly the stealthy type. Thankfully, Zuma had confidence. I got this, Rubble. Don't worry. Just follow me. Zuma snuck around all the crates and made sure Rubble followed. They were never detected. Chase maneuvered around and under the laps while firing at all the guards. None of the guards had time to figure out where he was, and the few that couldn't get an aim on him. That turned all the guards by Zuma and Rubble towards the front of the compound. The two were able to fire on all the guards. Mr. Sanchez's crew was now fighting a two-front war. There was some bad news for Skye, however. Pups? Someone has a guided missile launcher. Get out of there, Skye. Go to safety. Chase yelled. Skye saw the guard fire the missile. She was able to dodge it, but it came back around. She had to think fast. She saw an opening in the compound that looked big enough for her helicopter. Coincidentally, it's the same place the guard firing the missiles is standing. She went full speed ahead with the missile coming up on her fast. She panicked, but she was fast enough, and her plan was coming together. She hauled right into the opening with the missile trailing her. The missile hit a beam and blew up the guard along with a handful of other missiles, causing a bigger explosion than she expected. She almost got caught into the explosion, but she was able to go through the compound to the other side. However, the explosion pushed her helicopter out with more force than she wanted, and caused her to go into a spin. After a few seconds of thinking she was going to crash, she gained control. Skye. Please tell me you're okay. I've never been better. I'm good up here. That worried me. Rocky and Marshall were on paw and taking out guards. They headed into the compound. Mr. Sanchez was spectating the fight from his office. He knew his guards were getting lit up. Not even a single casualty on the pups. He was about to call in mercenaries, but he instead intercepted the pups' radio signal in hope to get them to cooperate. Very clever. I see you're making your way through. I told you we were gonna retaliate hard. We're all alive and we've almost cleared this place. Chase said. Not sure what kind of novice you take me for. I can send more guys in with the click of a button. This isn't even a fraction of my army. Not sure what kind of cowards you take us for. We're not scared. At this rate, we'll finish you in no time. Well, you pups are too clever to have to keep dealing with. My army will go try hard to take you down. I am willing to make a deal, however. No more deals. We will end this today. Skye jumped in. Wait, what deal are you willing to make? Marshall asked. Marshall. We're not gonna make deals. Chase said. I have mercenaries coming in right now. They're going to overwhelm you. I guarantee it. They will give you hell, then force you to surrender. Those of you who survive will be tortured. If you don't want that happening, you either run for your lives right now, and don't stop until you know we won't follow you, or surrender and have painless deaths. That'll never happen. Rocky said. We'll fight to the death. Chase said. Suit yourselves. Chase said. Mr. Sanchez called in his reinforcements. That's where Chase was wrong. He's bluffing. He doesn't have backup. This is all he has. Chase said. There's nothing for me to do up here, I'm gonna land and go in, Skye said. Skye landed right as the reinforcements came in. She didn't realize it was too late. There were multiple mercenaries with RPGs. She thought she was about to die. Luckily, the mercenaries showed mercy. One mercenary talked through an intercom on a truck. Keep the helicopter grounded or you will be shot down. She cooperated, not wanting to die. She called the rest of the pups. They have me. They have RPGs and machine guns aimed at me. Oh. He wasn't bluffing. Chase said. We'll be out to help. Zuma said. No. There's more than you think. The pups were overconfident and ran right out to help Skye. As soon as they did, they immediately regretted it. There were way too many for 6 pups to kill. They heard Mr. Sanchez. I told you my reinforcements would overwhelm you. We didn't even have to fire a shot. Your own idiocracy caused your imminent doom. How does it feel now? Your fate is just the same as your pathetic boys. There was mixed emotion throughout the pups. Chase had doubt in his mind that it was going to end this way. Rocky was thinking of a way to get out. Zuma started feeling the regret knowing he lost. Rubble was so scared he was about to die. Marshall felt remorse, and Skye knew she was about to join Ryder, so she wasn't too panicked. The mercenaries eventually backed the pups into a wall. The pups realized they were trapped and it was about to end. Mr. Sanchez was on his way out. What do you say, Mr. Sanchez? Drop them one by one. Nah, we're gonna torture them. They're not worthy of a quick death. I gave them the choice. This is it. This is the end. Zuma panicked. We're all about to die a slow, painful death. Rubble cried. This can't be. This can't be happening. It can't end this way. Marshall whined. Rocky, Chase, and Skye stayed silent. Chase realized Rocky was on the same track as him and whispered into his ear. There's no way out. Our deaths are imminent, but we can save the others. We both have all the firepower in our pup packs. We'll tell them to get down, then we shoot until we are absolutely dead. Rocky liked the idea, but had doubts. What if we fail? They'll take the heat out on them. All we have to do is clear a big enough hole in this army, and they can. Hey. No talking amongst each other. This is the end. You had your chances. Rocky and Chase looked at each other with uncertainty, but they both were willing to do it. They both built up the nerve and became ready. The 4 of you get down. Chase yelled. Rocky and Chase both pulled out what they needed to use to take these guys out and immediately fired. They ran into the crowd of mercenaries, causing them to shoot each other. They couldn't believe the plan worked. The 4 others joined. Out of nowhere came 5 trucks and a muscle car and joined into the lighting up of the mercenaries. Chase and Rocky hadn't gotten hit yet, leaving both wondering if this really just happened. With the help of the other 4 pups and 5.50 cal turrets, Chase and Rocky completed their mission with success. They looked up and realized who came in at just the right time. Joey, all the pups yelled. Wow. I guess I came just in time. JJ What came in as well. JJ What? You saved us. Mr. Sanchez was watching this from the inside of the compound. What just happened? Well, that backfired. JJ What was happy to help. It's a good thing Joey found me when he did. Rocky and Chase are the real heroes. Rubble pointed out. The four of the pups praised Rocky and Chase. I thought that was gonna be the last thing we did. Chase said. Rocky, Marshall said. Everyone noticed Rocky had gotten shot in the shoulder, but with the adrenaline rushing he didn't feel it. Rocky noticed he was suddenly the center of attention. What? You, got hit. What? Rocky looked to his right at his shoulder. Oh. Arg. Rocky suddenly felt the pain now that he knew what happened. Why would you tell me? I didn't feel it until you said something. I'm sorry. I thought you should know. This isn't over. There's still guys in the warehouse, and there's still Mr. Sanchez. Chase said. And there's still reinforcements, Mr. Sanchez said out of nowhere. They heard a bunch of M35 Deuce and a half trucks coming in. JJ What took charge. Joey and all you pups. Go into the compound and finish the job. Make sure you patch him up. My crew man the trucks and laps. The pups rushed into the compound, and Joey carried Rocky. Rocky wanted to walk on his own, but Joey wouldn't let him. Meanwhile, all of Mr. Sanchez's crew was debating on whether they even wanted to keep fighting for him. There were some that were staying loyal, but the rest either hated his guts from the start, or didn't want to lose the battle. Marshall patched Rocky, and the rest of the pups went through to liberate the compound. Skye was flying around when a sniper shot out her engines. She realized she was losing speed and lift. She started falling and was scared she was going to fall to her death. Then, someone caught her. She opened her eyes and realized it was one of Mr. Sanchez's men and started panicking. No, pup. Don't worry. I'm not gonna hurt you. The guy started petting her to comfort her. She realized she wasn't about to die. You're not gonna hurt me? You're just a pup. Sanchez is heartless, I hated his guts from the start. Let's get you back to safety. Skye. Are you okay? Joey asked. Yeah, I'm just fine. Someone caught me. They both saw Joey hiding behind a crate. They were up on a catwalk. Hey. Whatever your name is. Joey looked back and immediately aimed his gun at the guy. Joey. Wait. He's friendly. Skye said. I have your pup. I just wanted to return her. She's the sweetest thing ever. Well, I definitely do appreciate that. I don't know how to get down there. Joey got under them. I'll catch you, Skye. Just drop her. Skye and the guy didn't like that idea. Trust me. The guy dropped Skye and Joey caught her. Thanks again. No problem. I'm gonna find my way down. A few minutes later, the pups and a few guards were in combat. The guy came up to the guards and told them that they could switch sides with no punishment. Eventually, every guard left turned on Mr. Sanchez. The only people on Mr. Sanchez's side were the mercenaries getting lit up. Mr. Sanchez realized that and tried to rush to the rear exit. This went all wrong. Those pups are clever. Good thing I have C4 on every corner of the building. Click of this switch, and boom goes the compound. Those pups and the traitors will. Chase eventually came upon Mr. Sanchez. He was out lone wolf while the others were getting peace treaties. Not so fast. We didn't forget about you. Mr. Sanchez was unintimidated. You and what army? No one. Just you and me. Chase barked for the M4, and Karma. So what, you're gonna kill me now? I'll make sure this building goes up in smoke. Chase tried to fire the M4, but realized he was out of ammo. Oh. Huh. Things are starting to go my way again. Mr. Sanchez pulled out a 3-foot-long sword. Mistake to mess with me. Mr. Sanchez ran at Chase at full speed. Chase knew that sword was about to go through his body and pin him to the wall. He braced for it, but just before it happened, he heard a loud bang. A really loud bang. When he looked over, he was completely shocked. It was Mayor Humdinger with a .44 in hand. Mayor Humdinger. If anyone's going to ruin your life, it's gonna be me. I got your back, pup. The pups and Joey ran over to the rear entrance, scared about the bang. They saw Mayor Humdinger with the .44, Chase unharmed, and Mr. Sanchez laying motionless on the ground. Mayor Humdinger just saved my life. Chase said. Don't mention it. It's the least I can do. Everyone, the pups, Joey, JJ Watt, his crew, and the guys who switched sides all celebrated. We did it. He's dead. Chase was happy Mr. Sanchez was dead, but wished he could have been the one to end it. You and Mayor Humdinger did it. Skye said, you accomplished the goal. Good job, dude. Zuma said. Rocky tackled Chase as a celebration. The two got closer in the last week than they ever had in the last few years. Rocky yelped when he hit the ground, forgetting he had gotten shot. Don't give me any of the glory, Mayor Humdinger said, this just makes up for what I did. What did you do? Joey asked. This was the first time Joey and Mayor Humdinger talked to each other. Mayor Humdinger had no idea who Joey was. I'm technically who's responsible for Ryder's death. Sanchez interrogated me about nearby obstacles after I did a favor. I mentioned the Paw Patrol, but I had no idea he was going to do what he did. Joey now, rather than praising him for saving Chase and finishing the job, resented Mayor Humdinger. It was your fault. Joey felt the mission wasn't over. Tell me why I shouldn't clip you right now. Mayor Humdinger didn't expect that reaction. Whoa. Who are you? I'm Ryder's father. My whole mission was to avenge my son and protect these pups. Joey pulled the hammer back on the same .44 Mayor Humdinger used to kill Mr. Sanchez. Joey. Don't do this. You don't have to. He did nothing wrong, the pups cried. JJ Watt and his crew just watched in confusion. Out of the corner of his eye, Joey could see Mr. Sanchez move his arm. He knew he was about to blow the building to pieces. There was a guard with a 12 gauge, so Joe quickly reacted, stole it, then delivered a slug to Mr. Sanchez's skull. The pups all covered their eyes. He stood and realized he was able to end it himself. All right, you're spared, Joey said to Mayor Humdinger. The guy that helped Skye out went up to JJ Watt to join his side. At your service, Mr. Watt. Wait, you're not my crew? I was a slave to Sanchez, but now that he's finally dead, I'm free, but I also need something else to do. Well, welcome aboard. I'm sure you already thought about it, but feel free to take the compound and all the weapons in it. Yeah, I declared this place mine the minute we breached this place. Joey and the pups didn't know what to do now that Mr. Sanchez had been taken out. Hey, thanks for finding me. I'm more than happy to help, and I was able to take out my main rival, JJ Watt said. Thanks for helping out. Without you, me and the pups could have been lined in chalk, Joey said. What are you gonna do now? The pups jumped in. The 6 of us are still alive. You can succeed your son. Adventure Bay could use the Paw Patrol. Joey gave some thought to the pups' suggestions. You know what? I like that idea. Pack your bags, pups. We're going back to Adventure Bay. The pups all celebrated and hugged each other and Joey. "Well, if you have any major problems, I'm always here," JJ Watt said. "Just yelp for help," Joey said. The pups looked at Joey in disapproval. "No? Don't carry on the tradition? Mind if we take one of those laps home?" "Yeah, go ahead." Joey and the pups loaded all the vehicles onto a trailer and towed it with the LAPV back to Adventure Bay. Joey grabbed his Suburban and brought all the pups' stuff back to the lookout. He was happy to know he kept his promise to his son and now succeeded him. The Paw Patrol is now back in working order.